get into a shootout with them. That didn't really happen, although the difference was goaltending. You got it with Pye. They didn't with Kerrigan and Gillies.
Well, it was unfortunate, and for them, fortunate for us, I guess, because we got a couple goals early that were rather soft, and we got a lead, and we're able to build on it. And it was a type of game where they would outplay us in stretches, and we would come right back and score. So they were never rewarded for their pressure or their hard work, and tonight that might turn around.
What type of hockey game do you expect tonight? Do you expect a more physical type of hockey game, or do you expect much more of the same up and down that we had last night?
I have fear that it's going to be chippy. I thought they lost it in the last couple of minutes last night. They're frustrated right now. I think if we get up in the hockey game, they're liable to get physical a little bit. But I don't think that'll happen early. I think they want to be in the game early, try and get ahead of us, and use some of the talent that they have, which is offensive.
With the 7-goal difference last night, one of the positive aspects was the power play is not 0 for December anymore. They got 2 goals in the third period, and that has to make things a little bit better on the power play side.
I hope so, but if you get enough chances, you're going to score eventually. But the 2 goals were decent goals, and we had a couple other opportunities, and last night we beat them 2-0 on the power play, and we haven't done that very much.
Kevin Scott came back last night after missing the last 2 games with the ligament damage in his thumb. He did get a goal last night. I thought he had a little trouble handling the puck at times. What was your evaluation of how he played last night, and is he in the lineup tonight?
We'll go with the very same lineup, including Kevin. Obviously, he can't do as much with the puck with the cast as he could without. He got a nice goal. He can shoot it fine. It's a little bit tough when he's in traffic because he can't bend his wrist. It's a stiff wrist, but I thought he played over that. He skated well, and he gives us another line.
You know, one of the players last night that played well again was Dallas Drake in the center. I was really shocked last night because I didn't realize until after the game that he had a 5-point night.
Well, I thought he played great offensively. He didn't play very well defensively. A lot of our people didn't, and just a few minutes ago in a meeting, we tried to point that out, that goals will take care of themselves, but if you give a team as many chances as we gave Denver, you're going to lose a hockey game, so we're going to try and tighten up defensively tonight.
Rick, you know, it's that time of year getting into the Christmas season, and I know all the people at Channel 8 in Bresnan would like to wish you, your wife, and coaching staff and players a very Merry Christmas and the best of holidays, and I'm sure you'd like to do the same to the Wildcat fans.
Well, not only the fans, but to your crew and Kathy's crew. They've done a great job for Wildcat hockey, and the people of Marquette are special people, and we want to wish them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Rick Comley, best of luck tonight against Denver. First period hockey action, Denver and Northern Michigan coming up next here on Channel 8.
Listen to the heartbeat of America. Listen to the heartbeat.
Back at Marquette's Lakeview Arena, I'm Tom McCord along with Dave Porter. And Dave, the only changes in the standings last night are Northern Michigan moving up to the top and North Dakota picking up a couple of points.
Yeah, you know, there weren't too many league games last night due to the fact that Minnesota and Michigan Tech are up in Alaska, and there were a few other non-conference games, but you know, it feels good to be in first place.
North Dakota was a winner last night, 3-2 over Colorado College. The Fighting Sioux of Gino Gasparini now even on the season at 10-10, and they're down in 6th place. And you know, that's a big change. One of the kids said last night, I think it was Eric Lamarcus, says it's nice to be in first place after being in 5th and 6th a lot of the times the last couple of years.
Yeah, you know, I agree with Eric. You know, since I've been here, we had a great team, you know, my freshman year with Gary Emmons and Joe West and Ralph Voss and Ron Chazowski, and, you know, the list continues. And the difference between that team and the team we have now is that now we're like one big family. You know, we all work together. There's no individualism, and I think that's why we've had more success now than we have in the past.
The Denver Pioneers are hitting the ice, and Dave, I guess the question would be is, how do you develop that type of camaraderie on a hockey team such as the Northern Michigan Wildcats?
Well, you know, it's nothing you can teach. You know, it's either there or it's not. And I think, you know, we work hard. You know, that's a good ethic that we have. We work hard. We work together. You know, we don't count on one individual, like I said. And I think that not really having one superstar, you know, nobody can, you know, key on that. And I think that the reason why we're having such good success is that we all work hard and we all want the same goal, not just as individuals, but as a team.
Well, that's paid off to this point. The Northern Michigan Wildcats have spent the last 24 hours in first place in the WCHA. They're going to try and extend that lead over the Minnesota Gophers to 3 points tonight as they try and sweep the Denver Pioneers. Northern Michigan has now won 10 of their last 11 hockey games and have won also 5 in a row, looking for number 6. And coming into the homestand, which was 6 games, the ideal, of course, was to sweep them all, but you have to take it one game at a time, and they're at game number 6, and it can be done.
It can be done, you know, and right now we're 6 points ahead of Denver, and if we win tonight, it's a very big game because either we extend it to 8 or it's cut down to 4. So, you know, it's a very important game for us tonight.
Northern Michigan can extend that gap, as Dave just said, between 1 and 3. We'll see if that happens momentarily, and the Northern Michigan Wildcats about ready to be introduced on the ice. Let's go down to Tim McIntosh. There are your referee and linesman for the hockey game this evening. Dewey Marcus once again the referee, and the linesman Bill Wiseman and Bruce Olson. And Dave, you know, quite a contrast, the work of Marcus last night as compared to the series the week before. And that's not to say that Dewey Marcus was perfect last night. I don't think anybody ever is. But it was a much more evenly officiated game, I thought, than the previous weekend.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, he made some very, very bad calls, you know, last weekend in Duluth, especially that overtime call, which, you know, nobody could believe. But, you know, he roughed a good game last night, and hope he does the same thing tonight.
Bill Pye with an identical record to the Northern Michigan hockey record at 13-6-1. Saves percentage of, or check that, a .397 goals against average, and the saves percentage just over 90%. Lucian Kerrigan gets the call tonight, the sophomore from Fernie, British Columbia. And his statistics coming in, we just saw on the screen, a .452 goals against average. And, you know, we mentioned on the broadcast last night, of course, Fernie, British Columbia, as we're looking at Rick Comley, is also the home of Phil Sukharoff. And Phil telling me after the hockey game last night that he played all through minor hockey on the same team and with Kerrigan, although they went their separate ways after that. So another sidelight to the hockey game this evening. I guess that happens all the time in this league, though.
Well, Suki, he should know where his good and bad spots are, so... Yeah, but, you know, I think tonight, Tom, we're going to see a different Denver team than we saw last night. You know, they didn't have very good goaltending at all last night. I think tonight we're going to see a little bit more offensive threat, and they're probably going to key a little bit more on defense, I would imagine.
Well, I'm sure Ralph Backstrom, whom you just saw on your screen, had some words to say to his Denver Pioneers after last night's hockey game. This one's underway. Sit back and relax. Dallas Drake in over the Denver line from the faceoff. Tries a drop pass as he's run into the side boards, and Dave Shields intercepts. Drake picks that up, battling for it with Galicki along the board. Shields has it once more and circles in front of his own goal. Shields takes a tumble, though, picks up the puck forward anyway, and it's driven down into the Northern Michigan zone. Russo fires it across the crease. A centering pass out front. Ed Ward hops down low to take that out of danger. Jeff Galicki back through center ice, clearing down into the Denver zone. Kerrigan out of his goal, clears it along the near side boards. Wildcats body the man back there. A blast from the blue line by Podrasky, and that changed direction and just missed the far corner. Down on top of the puck in behind the goal, the Denver University player in the faceoff will stay in the Denver zone.
That was a good shot there by Pete. It got a little high on him, and it deflected off of, I'm not sure if it was Ed or the defenseman in front of the net, but it just almost snuck by Kerrigan.
Would have been a strange way to start the hockey game on a sour note if that one would have gone
Well, it
in.
would have been a sweet note for us.
Wildcats change up right off the bat. They have Jacobson along with Brown and Berger. This line's been picking up things for Northern Michigan the past couple of weeks, especially with Jacobson's speed, which he's seemed to come on with a great vigor here in the last several games. Puck cleared back down into the Northern Michigan zone. Trying to hop in there is Behrens. He can't control the puck, though, and it's cleared back out into center ice. Losing the puck right there is Rod Summers backing over the line Brown, but that's intercepted, and now it's offside as Brown regains control. We played a minute 12 seconds in the opening period. No score in the hockey game.
You know, we've had great defense, you know, throughout the year so far, and I think that's been a very big part of our game. You know, what coach always strives is that, you know, you play good defense and the offense will take care of itself.
No, that was the biggest question mark, I think, coming into the season. Last year, it was felt you had the offense and not the defense. This year it was the other way around, and the defense has carried the Wildcats through much of the first half of the season.
Especially with the good play of Billy Pye.
That's certainly been a big help back there. John Good in the center ice zone, clearing for Berger back in over the Denver line. Kerrigan out of his goal to hold it up for Summers in the near side corner. Summers takes a look, takes it back in behind the Denver cage. Berger, that's him going headlong behind Summers, but not being able to get the puck. Summers clears down into the Northern Michigan zone. Bill Pye out of his goal, clears it up along the near side boards. Biggs holds it in down low. Centering pass off of the side of the goal. Loose puck. The puck is off the magnets, and the play is whistled down. We may have penalties. We'll definitely have a face-off in the Wildcat zone.
You know, that was Engelvik in front there who was tossing with John Good. You know, I think he's a big part of that line that was just out to that Jay Moore line. You know, he just stands right in front of the net there and, you know, tries to screen Billy. And what we got to do, I think we got to, you know, take him out of there so Billy can see the puck coming from the point.
Engelvik, 6'1", 207 pounds, a senior from Surrey, British Columbia. 6 goals on the season, 13 total points. And this is Howe centering McBride and Biggs for the Pioneers. Wildcats control the faceoff. Eric Lamarck along the near side boards. Bodied there by a couple of Pioneers. Lou Malone will come away with the loose puck. Oh, dangerous pass, and Malone is decked in behind the goal. He may be hurt, but he gets up. Glandowski takes the loose puck. Malone, I think, is going to head for the Wildcat bench. Anto steps into his man at the blue line. Podrasky on for Malone. Clears the puck and now goes after it. Malone just got decked trying to cut in between the post and Billy Pye almost as he tried to go around the corner of the net. And the puck is hit with a high stick. The faceoff will come all the way back down into the Denver zone, and I can feel that one up here.
You know, it looked like what happened is that Louis came close to the net, and as he looked up to make a pass to, I think it was Daryl Plandowski, he just, you know, didn't even see the Biggs come from in front of the net, and he just got hit.
Name of the game is keep your head up. I'm sure you've had that happen to you before.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Face-off off to the right side of Lucian Kerrigan. 17:30 remaining opening period. So far, a scoreless tie tonight from Lakeview Arena. Kevin Scott back from the injury that kept him out of 2 games. Had a goal last night. Out with Garrow and Shayak. Another Wildcat line that's come on in recent weeks, Dave.
Yeah, it has. It's been really good. You know, this is our 4th line, but, you know, they've been playing like a 3rd or 2nd line.
Still waiting for the drop of the puck. McBride and Scott on the face-off. Scott wins the draw, gets hauled to the ice. Make a Shayak down to the ice. Scott clears it back in behind the goal. Centering pass, and that went off the stick of Scott, and that was wide of the Pioneer net. Play still loose deep in the Pioneer zone. Pioneers will finally skate it back out into center ice. A long clearing pass for McBride goes too far. And we've got a penalty coming up behind the play, and it'll be a slashing call on Northern Michigan Shayak. Pioneers will go on the power play for the first time tonight. Time of the penalty is 2:56. Northern Michigan very successful last night in killing off the Denver power plays. They even added a goal on the shorthanded situation, Dave, and I thought that goal by Lamarck broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Yeah, it was. You know, that's when Denver was, you know, they were getting their momentum back, and you know, and on the power play they were trying to score, but when Eric scored that goal, they just looked like they just fell apart.
The goal last night by Lamarck in the shorthanded situation was the Wildcats' 5th of the season. That's a pretty good number for a hockey team midway in the season, although you look up to the NHL and you see a fellow like Esa Tikkanen with 9 shorthanded goals already. It makes you wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I think he's got 10 or 11 by now.
He's just been on a roll in the shorthanded situations for those Edmonton Oilers. Pioneers right now on the power play. They'll try and hit the scoreboard first tonight, bringing it down into the Wildcat zone. First person back there, number 66, Darrell Olson. Clears around for Phil Brown. Puck back to the blue line. MacArthur has it there, winding up for a slap shot, deflected right on, and Pye, a good save there. Clearing pass in behind the goal, right out front, and having it roll off the end of his stick was Christoffoli. Lucky for Northern Michigan, Bill Pye dove on that loose puck. Christoffoli has to be talking to himself a little bit, and I'll tell you what, with the success that Pye's had against Denver this year, early in the hockey game, it might be a telling factor if that continues or if it doesn't.
Yeah, you know, that could be. Just on that play just there, you know, Dave Shields in the corner with the puck, and he had Darren McBride and Ed Christoffoli coming down the slot, you know, and he could have passed either one. So, you know, Billy came up big early again.
It was almost a 2-on-none situation, an excellent scoring opportunity, and that's got to frustrate a hockey team that has had games of 2 goals, no goals, and 2 goals on a goaltender, and 4 goals in 3 games in anybody's hockey league is something super.
Oh, you know, definitely. And, you know, when we were in Denver, you know, how many times can you say that, you know, you scored, 5 goals in the WCHA and say you swept on the road, you know, or 4 goals for that matter. You know, it doesn't happen that often.
From the faceoff, Denver controls on the power play. This is MacArthur back on the blue line, a shot, and that just trickles wide of the goal. Play loose along the far side boards, cleared back out into center ice. Back in over the Northern Michigan line, and that play is going to be whistled down. We'll have an interference call coming up against the Pioneers that will nullify Denver's power play. Into the penalty box is Russo. Time of this penalty will be 3:56 here in the opening period. We'll play 4-side for the next 58 seconds, and Northern Michigan will have their first opportunity on the power play.
Well, you know, we have a minute here before we go on the power play, and we're going to play 4-on-4 here. I think what we're going to do here on the 4-on-4 is basically just try to keep the puck wide, you know, and then hopefully get a good shot on net, and then wait till the power play kicks in.
Do you feel that this type of situation, 4-on-4 against the Pioneers, Dave, benefits Northern Michigan, or is it more of a wash?
Well, I think it's probably more of a wash because, you know, they have such great speed, and with the extra ice, you know, Denver's probably going to use that to their advantage. But then again, you know, we have good speed too, so I think it probably evens out.
Eric Lamarck into the far side corner in behind the Pioneer goal. Double team there. Blandowski also coming in. And the play stopped, and we've got a little pushing and shoving down there after the whistle. Face-off will stay in the Pioneer zone off to the right side of Lucian Kerrigan. And this is something that Dewey Marcus, Dave, is going to want to take a look at before something gets out of hand.
Yeah, you know, he wants to take control of the game really before, you know, it gets out of control. As you can see right now, Denver's getting a little frustrated there by, you know, taking shots after the whistle. And, you know, the frustration's beginning to show, you know, especially, you know, seeing that they're an offensive team and we haven't let them do anything against us.
Blandowski on the face-off for Northern Michigan facing Eric Morano, a junior from Calgary, Alberta. Morano wins the draw this time. Play back in behind the Denver goal. Up through center ice, McBride, right side passing over the line. Morano a shot. That's waist high on Bill Pye, and he covers that up. Face-off off to the left side of the Wildcat netminder.
You know, last night they had 43 shots on Billy Pye. And I didn't think they had that many, but, you know, like I said last night, they probably counted as whenever they took the initial shot, along with 2 or 3 quick rebound shots, so they added up pretty quick.
Well, you know, the types of opportunities like they just had now, Dave, the quick shot, if a goaltender can drop down and just freeze that puck and not give up the rebound, those kind of shots add up even though they don't seem that serious during the situation.
Yeah, that's true, and also what that does is by freezing that, is that it slows the game down and it doesn't let the other team, you know, get the momentum going. So, you know, Billy's doing a good job right now.
Still 4-on-4 for another 21 seconds here in the opening period. 15:27 to play. Wildcats in 21 seconds when Dave Shyak comes out of the box will be going on the power play. Face off back to the blue line, a long shot, and Pye makes a good kick save there, and Dallas Drake back through center ice for Northern Michigan off to Antos. Antos trying to go around on the backhand, cutting for the goal, and that one off the side of the net. Dallas Drake now in the near side corner for Northern Michigan, hauled down to the ice as a Denver player lying across the back of his legs. That's Mike Markovich. And a little jousting session going on out front with Dean Antos and the Pioneer player. And we're going to be heading to the penalty box, I believe. That's Ken MacArthur, number 20. And we should have probably offsetting penalties here.
It's like Dean Antos for the Wildcats.
Which, you know, the crowd is booing, but, you know, that's something that, as we just pointed out a minute ago, he's got to take a little bit of control in this hockey game.
Yeah, he does. You know, if things like that, you know, just go unannounced or, you know, just pushed aside, then, you know, it's going to get worse and worse as the game goes on.
You know, in a situation like we had against Minnesota Duluth last weekend, Dave, you know, when the referee's not calling anything consistently either way, the players on the ice don't really know what he's going to call either, and that makes things worse.
Yeah, it does. You know, if he doesn't, you know, take control of the game early, guys are going to be running guys, and sometimes they're going to be, you know, kind of shy or hesitant to really hit somebody because, you know, he can just turn around and call anything at any time.
Face-off will be off to the left side of Lucian Kerrigan. We have 1 second left in the first Wildcat penalty to Dave Shayak. Right now we'll be 3-on-3. It'll be a 4-on-3 Wildcat power play when Shayak comes out of the penalty box. Antos and MacArthur 2 minutes apiece at the 4:57 mark here in the first period. And the rate this is going, we might have to crack out another penalty score sheet by the time the second period gets around.
Yeah, this one's about half filled already.
Roughing calls on both Northern Michigan and the Denver Pioneers. Wildcats are now back at full strength on the power play. Pete Podrasky in behind his own goal. 4-on-3, the power play situation for Northern Michigan. Darrell Olson pulls up inside the Denver blue line, winds up for a slap shot right on it. Kerrigan sharp there, rebound! And a good save by Kerrigan off the stick of Phil Berger. Berger had 2 cracks at that one. Plandowski circles back in behind his own goal. Half a minute left in the Northern Michigan power play. Dallas Drake back in over the Denver line. Pulls up along the near side boards. Cross ice, Olson for a slap shot right on, and Kerrigan has that and covers up the rebound. Is right there on the doorstep was Darryl Plandowski.
You know, that's a thing about 4-on-3. You know, there's a lot more ice, and you can make your quick passes, but then again, if there's a shot from the blue line, more than likely the goalie is going to be able to see it. And with 4-on-3, you know, there's not that extra man out there, and it's a little harder to screen the goaltender.
For Northern Michigan, Pete Podrasky, Darrell Olson, Darryl Plandowski, and Phil Berger. From the faceoff, Wildcats control with Olson off to Pete Podrasky. Podrasky will wind it up, hit the goalpost. Hit the goalpost, might have hit both of them. Podrasky back on the blue line to Olson for the slapper right on. Kerrigan sharp on that one. And here come the Pioneers, a possible 2-on-1 for Denver. Down in over the Northern Michigan line. This is Shields, both teams back at full strength. And Pye gloved off the easy shot that time, made the save and clears back through center ice. This is Berger winding up, long drive, and that gets deflected up over the glass, way up into the bleachers by Rod Summers, and the faceoff will be just inside the DU line.
You know, Tom, looks like the DU goaltender Kerrigan, you know, he's playing a lot better than he played last night. Last night looked like he was, you know, dancing on eggshells, and tonight he looks pretty steady.
Well, right now he's got to thank his goalpost as we look at Phil Berger with 11 goals and 16 assists on the season. 27 points for Phil to lead the Hockey Wildcats. Number 2, that's darn impressive, Dallas Drake with 25 points.
That's very impressive.
And Darrell Olson third with 21, a couple assists in last night's hockey game for big number 66. Wildcats backing over the line. Drake can't control the puck. In behind his own goal is Russo for Denver. His pass intercepted by Jeff Galicki. Galicki tries to go into the slot area for Drake. That goes off a skate. Centering pass. Oh, and that almost ended up in the goal. Dallas Drake being sat on down to the right side of Kerrigan. Play finally whistled down. I'm not sure why it finally stopped.
Fans want to call there, Tom, but I don't think they're going to get it.
I think the puck ended up in the crowd that time.
Yeah, it did. High up in the gondola.
I don't think Foster Hewitt's here tonight either,
Or Harold Ballard.
thankfully. Boy, I tell you, the Maple Leafs right now, or the Maple Loafs as they call them on some stations, are going through a period of time much like the Detroit Red Wings were a few years ago, and it's got to be extremely frustrating to keep selling out that building over there, much like they did Detroit for a long time and have the type of hockey team they have.
Oh, yeah, definitely, when they were in a skid, the Wings were the whole Detroit area called them the Dead Wings. So
Among other things.
among other things. That was being nice.
Denver controls the faceoff. We still have 20 seconds, or make that 11 seconds, left in the minor penalties to both teams. We're still playing 4-on-4 here, almost to the midway point in the first period. No score in the hockey game. Good intercepts the pass in the center ice zone. Sukharov loses a stick and a glove, but finally gets both back. Good back in over the line for Northern Michigan, knocked back out in the center ice. Cleared right back in by Warenka. Delayed offside on the play, finally whistled down. It'll be brought back outside into the neutral center ice zone.
Yeah, it did look like John backed up far up field of the blue line, and Dean Antos swung back in, so they immediately called the offsides there.
Both goaltenders have been sharp early in the hockey game. Bill Pye with a good save off a shot from the blue line almost immediately in, and Kerrigan with several good saves and a little bit of luck too, as I think that shot might have hit both goal posts from Pete Pedrasky.
Yeah, I know it hit one for sure. I couldn't be for sure if it hit the other one or not.
Thought I almost heard two dings there, but you never can tell.
Maybe it was the echoing.
Could be, just like a concert in here. From the faceoff, Denver tosses it back up into the center ice zone, up the right side, coming in, a quick shot, they score! And that is Engelvik with his second goal of the weekend, and the Pioneers on kind of a flutter ball shot take the 1-0 lead. Time of the goal will be 7:24 here in the opening period.
Yeah, here we are on the replay here. It looks like he didn't get all the shot, and looked like Billy overplayed it, and looked like he got a piece of it though, and it went between his arm and his body.
Jay Moore with one assist on the play, and Mark Russo with the other. Looking at that replay, Dave, I'm not sure that the Wildcat defenseman on that side might not have gotten a stick on that puck and changed the direction of it a little bit.
I couldn't tell him that, Tom, but, I know he didn't get all that shot. Whether he did or he didn't, I'm not sure, but as it turns out, it just snuck between Billy's arm and his body.
Well, this is definitely the position Denver wanted to be in, up 1-0 in the hockey game rather than down 1-0.
Yeah, I'm sure that Ralph Backstrom wanted to get that first goal tonight and see if they can get the momentum swinging to their side, and we're just going to have to work a little harder now.
From the faceoff, cleared back down by Markovich into the Northern Michigan zone. Centering pass got deflected off a skate. Rebound loose, and just wide of the goal by Biggs. And a dangerous situation as Denver almost went up 2-0. Play loose into the center ice zone. Little Wildcat luck on the green going there. Cross ice pass, Daryl Olsen, long to Antos. Antos on the break-in. Quick shot, score! Antos!
Here's a replay here, Tom. Daryl Olsen saw Dean Antos breaking up the center of the ice, and he hit him with the pass, and Dean beat him on the low right-hand side.
What a pass.
Unbelievable pass.
And a great shot by Antos to answer back for Northern Michigan, and that's what you see a lot of times when a team has an excellent scoring opportunity at one end. A second later, it can come right back down and haunt you as the other team puts one in.
Oh, yeah, definitely, Tom. That's another Armour Star goal.
Well, let's hope we have a lot more Armour Stars tonight before this one's over. Back in over the Northern Michigan line comes Morano. Little collision there between Sukharov and Greg Stocklin. Rebound is right in front of the goal, and the net now is off the magnets, and the faceoff will come back outside, and we may also have a penalty coming up on the play as the Wildcats came awfully close to getting number 2. Penalty coming up to Bruce Robinson, a holding call at 8:21 here in the first period. Wildcats will be going on the power play for the second time. Both teams right now currently 0 for 1. How about a quick recap, Dave, on those first 2 goals of the game?
Well, DU's goal was scored by Angovic with assist going to Moore and Rousseau. And the Wildcats' first goal was scored by Dean Antos, assist going to Darrell Olson and Pete Podrasky.
Denver hops on a loose puck deep in the DU zone, comes back through center ice with MacArthur. Nice move around Podrasky, right in. Shot it about half a foot wide of Bill Pye. Another excellent scoring opportunity for the Pioneers. Wildcats right back, and Dallas Drake about a half stride offside. Face off back into center ice. Good call.
Looked like Dallas was trying to get the jump and break through the middle of the ice there, so Dean could give him the pass, but I think he went a little too quick there.
You look at Rick Comley in behind the Northern Michigan bench, and I know Rick very pleased with the way the hockey team's been playing, and also has to be very pleased that he's back on top after several years. He was very used to that position back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure Coach is very pleased with the way we've been playing lately, and he just hopes that we can continue with our success.
Driven back into the Denver zone, held along the near side boards, dumped down in the corner by Dallas Drake. Back on the blue line, Podrasky holds it. No, he didn't hold it. Ruled to be back out over the line. It'll come back out into center ice.
I don't think Bruce is going to have a lot of friends right about now making that call.
Well, Bruce being Bruce Olson, the linesman. And I'd say, without seeing the replay, the only thing in his favor is that he's on the line and we're back at the other one.
I have to agree with you there, Tom.
Wildcats can't control the faceoff. Denver clears it all the way back down the ice, right to Billy Pye. 1:15 left in the holding penalty to Bruce Robinson. Wildcats will start it out again on the power play up the left side for Pete Podrasky. In over the Pioneer line, drop pass for Berger, back in behind the goal. This will be Dallas Drake. Drake in the near side corner for Northern Michigan, back on the right point to Podrasky, across left side Olson. Olson fakes the shot off to Drake. Drake tries to dump it back to the blue line to Podrasky, and now we've got a maze of players tied up in the Denver goal crease area. And the play whistled down, and the faceoff will come outside as the Wildcat player Antos is ruled to be in the crease.
You know, I don't think that's a very good call. It looked like Dean was pushed into the crease by Mark Rousseau, and they're bringing the faceoff outside anyway, though.
And of course, if an offensive player is pushed into the crease, that negates the call that just happened.
That's right. Then the next road game for the Wildcats will be next weekend against Duluth. That's the 22nd and 23rd December. You can hear all the action here on Q107.
That's actually a
Radio.
Thursday night, Friday night.
Yeah, it is, which is very strange. But then again, it's the Christmas weekend, so.
Kind of another short week for the Wildcats. They'll be taking off from Marquette on Wednesday and busing it over to Duluth, playing the Duluth Arena, a very fine facility on the shores of Lake Superior. Pioneers with Barons back in over the Northern Michigan line, bumped off the play by Sukharov. Half a minute left in the Wildcat power play. They'll try and get it going once again. Long pass up into the center ice zone. Galicki went one way, the puck went the other. Sukharov picks it up, clears it back into the Denver zone. Kerrigan leaves it there, no one else picked it up. Summers steps in to take it, clears it up the glass on the near side boards. Marenko put in a headlock at the blue line, and the Pioneers clear the zone back to center ice, and we've got a penalty coming up on the play, and I think both players are going to go. Summers for Denver and Galicki for Northern Michigan. Time of the penalties will be 10:13 here in the opening period.
Looks like NMU's going to have the power play for a grand total of 8 seconds here, Tom.
They'll remain on the power play for 8 seconds. 8 seconds still left in that initial call of holding to Bruce Robinson. A 1-1 score on the board. First period hockey action. Tom McCord along with Dave Porter from Lakeview Arena. And Dave, of course, as we talked last night, looking forward to getting back into action with the Wildcats. And you know, something we didn't talk about last night, and I'm sure it's crossed your mind, the team playing so well right now, you might have a tough time getting back into the lineup.
Yeah, you know, that's entered my mind quite a bit. I'm just going to have to, you know, really work hard and you know, just see what happens.
Well, that's the key to the whole thing is working hard, and if players work hard and teams work hard, good things are going to happen. Wildcats still in control in the Denver zone. Both teams playing at equal strength. We're 5-on-5 right now. We'll make that 4-on-4 right now. Pioneers back in over the Northern Michigan line. On the backhand is Moore, knocked away by Podrasky. Stepping in is Troy Jacobson. Long pass up into the center ice zone from Podrasky to Berger. Berger being slowed right at the Denver line. Icing will be the call, though, as the puck crossed all three lines. Face off back into the Northern Michigan zone.
You know, sometimes, Tom, you, as a forward, you wish that there was a touch-up rule for icing. You know, because a lot of times you can beat that opposing defenseman down the ice and get there first, but with this rule, it's it's automatic icing. So sometimes it can work to your advantage, but then again, it can hurt you.
Well, from a time standpoint, late in a hockey game, it works to advantage. It saves valuable seconds of a team getting back to touch the puck.
Oh, definitely, and plus, the defenseman on the opposing team could be tired throughout the game, and that could also work for your advantage.
From the faceoff, puck skips back to John Gooden behind the goal. He dumps it for Sukharov. Sukharov's pass is stolen back there by Howe. Howe gets it back to the blue line, winding up and faking the shot over to Russo. A quick shot, and Pye sharp with the stick save there. Sukharov hooked off the puck momentarily in behind the Wildcat goal. Up to Eric Lamarck. Bouncing puck up into center ice for Antos, and I believe he closed his hand on the puck. It's going to be the ruling, and the play whistled down.
Yeah, I think that's what they're calling it there, Tom. I'm not sure if Dean, covered the puck totally with his glove, or if what they're saying is he carried it. He took a step, took a stride or two with it.
Face-off will be just outside the Northern Michigan blue line. If you're just joining us, goals by Engovic for Denver, Antos for Northern Michigan, 1-1 the score. Puck loose in the center ice zone. Pioneers can't control it. Eric Lamarck will try his luck off to Plandowski. He just dumps it down into the DU end. First person there is Markovic. He takes a body down there from Antos. Puck cleared up the near side boards. Markovic spun around there in the circle. Pioneers finally work it back out into center ice. Dumped down into the Northern Michigan end by Howe. Bill Pye holds it up for Sukharov. Plays still loose into the center ice zone. Christoffoli brought it back in momentarily, held up by Shields. Shields tries to make a nifty move around Scott, can't do so. John Good steps in. Good ties it up in the corner. Late man coming in to add a little bump to the play was Lance Momotani. Face-off will stay in the Northern Michigan zone.
I think right now Ralph Backstrom is having the kind of first period that he wants his team to have. It's a tie game, 1-1 on the road, and this is a very tough rink to play in. And I think right now he's probably very happy with the way his team's playing.
That's the key to road success in the WCHA, Dave. I'm sure the Wildcats found that out last year. If you play tight on the road like they did, say, in the playoffs against Wisconsin, and so far this year you played pretty tight on the road, anything can happen. You get a break or two, and the game is yours.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's with teams, with such, speed as, Denver, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, that's the way you have to play those teams. They have a lot of speed. And especially like if you're in their rank, you play tight man and they get frustrated, then they'll draw penalties, and that's how you get the success on the power play.
Last play offside of the Denver line. We'll face it off just outside the Pioneer blue stripe. Of course, the next road test for the Wildcats coming up very quickly, as we mentioned it a little bit earlier, at Minnesota Duluth. The Wildcats with a 4-4 road record, and that's more wins on the road than they had all last season. Pye will drop down on this one. Face-off will be in the Wildcat zone.
Yeah, we only had 3 wins all last year on the road, and that was the key thing coming into this year that the coaches wanted to turn around was the road record. And so far, we're 500. I'm sure they're more than pleased with that. So when we go to Duluth next weekend, hopefully we can have continued success.
A 500 road record and a very good home record all adds up to first place in the WCHA, and that's where the Wildcats were coming into the hockey game tonight. Played tied up just inside the Denver, we'll make that the Northern Michigan line, and we'll face it off again about 10 feet inside the Wildcat blue line.
I think tonight so far Denver has been taking the body a little bit more. They've been forechecking, and it looks like right now they're forechecking one man, And then, you know, once we make the pass, then the second man in the zone, you know, he goes right towards, to where they're making the pass. So, you know, right now they're having their defense is pinching in right now, and that's causing some turnovers.
Jay Moore with Rick Behrens on his right side and the goal scorer Engevic on his left. From the faceoff, Moore takes a blast to the chest and hits the ice. Hit by the shot from his own defenseman, Russo. Behrens flips it right back into the Northern Michigan zone. Bill Pye out of the goal to clear up along the near side boards. Held at the blue line by Russo, dumps it down further. Lou Malone steps in. Gets it up momentarily for Phil Berger. Behrens ties him up along with Russo. Those two down on the ice, and we'll have a face-off right there.
Looks like Phil was battling there along the boards with Rick Behrens. And Rick pinched in there, and he took Phil out of the play, and they both fell to the ice.
You know, one thing that we've talked about throughout the season is that after the 40-goal year last year, of course, Berger has drawn a lot more attention from opposing teams. And it was imperative, you know, that the rest of the Wildcats picked up some of the slack to balance the load more offensively, and I think that's been a key this year also.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, most teams, you know, they key on Phil, and it's been really great the way the guys on the team have been picking up for that shadowish, for, you know, when they shadow Phil.
Sooner or later, and I don't think I would have heard myself say this 2 years ago, we're going to have to put somebody on Galicki as Jacobson comes away. Late man in is Brown, and that shot just went wide. Held in at the blue line by Jacobson. Nifty play by the Wildcat centers. He steals the puck again. Play still loose in the Denver zone. Berger steps into his man. Takes a late shot from behind up around the helmet. That came from Russo. And we've got a little scuffling going on over there now after the fact. Engevic in the middle of it with Darrell Olson. Engevic better watch himself. He's kind of manhandling one of the linesmen there, Bill Wiseman. You know what I just started to mention, and I almost got it out as Jacobson broke down the ice, was, you know, for the last couple of years, watching the Wildcats and Jeff Galicki, I never thought I would say to myself that they would have to think about shadowing him out front of the goal, but so far he's almost been like the immovable object out there, and he's converting on a regular basis.
Well, you know, with the success that Jeff is having this year, you know, it'd probably be a good idea for opposing teams to shadow him. I mean, you know, this whole line actually, you know, they've just been great. You know, they've been our #1 line all year, and I think the reason why they're having such good success is because, you know, the work ethic of Jeff Galicki and Ed Ward. You know, they go in there and they crash, and then Dallas, you know, comes in and picks the puck up, and, you know, that's how a line should work.
13:24, the time of those two minor penalties. Berger and Engevic both for roughing. We'll play 4-on-4 once again here in the opening period. Quick shot by the Pioneers, rebound, and Pye makes a great save there, robbing Bruce Robinson. What a save by the sophomore from Canton, Michigan. Wildcats clear it back down into the Denver zone. Kerrigan out of the goal to clear it up along the near side boards. Podrasky with a quick shot, and Kerrigan has that bounce off his chest and grabs the rebound. And now he covers it up with 6:01 to play. And Pye came out of nowhere just a moment ago, Dave, to steal that last shot from Robinson.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. He robbed Robinson there. No pun intended, of course, but he made a big save there, and just down at the other end, looked like sticks were getting a little high between Ed Ward and Morano there, and looked like the ref was just getting ready to call one, but then they skated away from each other.
On the faceoff, Dave Shields, a 5'9" junior from Calgary, Alberta. One of the many outstanding Denver players, wins the draw. Shields has speed, can also handle the puck, can also score goals. Dallas Drake clears it back around in behind his own goal. This is Eric Lamarck. Lamarck circles, he'll take a look and leave it for John Good. 1-1 the score on the board, 5:40 to play in the opening period. MacArthur at his own blue line for Denver, off to Christoffoli. Up over the Northern Michigan line, Shields a quick shot. That gets deflected by Pye off the short glass. And we had a run on the far side and a high stick being called as Sukharov caught the stick up around the helmet. Now down in behind the goal, Eric Lamarck is getting sticks up in the air with Christoffoli. It will be a Denver penalty, though. And the Wildcats will be going back on the power play as Shields heads into the penalty box.
Looks like Dave Shields got a high sticking there right in the face of Phil Sukaroff after Phil took him out along the sideboards there, so he'll be sitting for 2.
14:35, the time of that penalty to Denver for the Wildcats. This will be their 3rd power play opportunity here in the opening period. So far, they are 0 for 2. Landowski, Drake, and Antos for Northern Michigan. 3 forwards, 1 defenseman, that being Daryl Olson. 4 on 3 in front of the respective goaltenders. Still 43 seconds left in the coincidental minor penalties to Engevic and Berger. The Wildcats will be going 5 on 4 here in another 35 seconds. Olson fakes the shot, moves into the circle, tries to go cross ice, and that's deflected out nicely. Back down into the Wildcat zone by Darren McBride. Olson circles back in behind his own goal. Up through center ice to Plandowski. Plandowski had a goal in last night's hockey game, breaking a scoring drought for the sophomore from Lloydminster. Plandowski battles for it in the near side corner, can't come up with it. Denver clears it back, not out though, as it's held in by Dallas Drake. Drake moving in, blasts a shot right on. Good save by Kerrigan. Rebound to Plandowski. Berger and Engevic back on. 5 on 4 power play for another minute 5. Puck loose in the slot area, brought out by the Pioneers back through center ice. On the move is McBride in over the Northern Michigan line. Tied up nicely by Antos. Coming in to take the puck is Engevic, but Drake comes back to take it away from him. This is Jeff Galicki back through center ice. In over the Pioneers line, having his stick held there by Behrens, or make that Rod Summers. Pioneers clear the zone, now bring it back into the Northern Michigan end. Double team there, Wildcats bring it out, come down 3 on 2, Galicki in over the line, cross ice, quick shot, they score! Berger! I thought for a moment, Dave, I didn't see the light. I thought that might have gone off the goalpost.
No, that went in and out so fast there, Tom. Hit the post in the center there. Here's Jeff. He's breaking down the right side. He fakes a shot, and he gives it over to Phil, and Phil just buries it.
Galicki and Olson get the assist. Time of the goal will be 16:08. Wildcats with their first lead of the hockey game at 2-1. And that should have been another power play goal, correct?
Yes, power play goal.
3 for 4 after going about 2 for 42. Percentage going back the other direction. Penalty coming up now as John Good got the stick in the skates, and he'll go off for a tripping call as Behrens went down in the far side corner, and the Pioneers will have another shot on the power play, their second, with 3:39 left here in the opening period. 16:31, the time of the penalty on John Good.
And that's the 11th penalty this period, Tom. You know, if this continues, we're going to have to get a whole new portfolio here.
We're going to need something. We might also send Bresnan a larger bill for a little overtime here tonight. We might be here till tomorrow morning at this rate.
Good thing I brought along that extra pen.
I didn't bring a change of clothes, though, so let's get this over with. Denver on the power play for a minute 50. Engevic into the far side corner, takes a hit there from Podrasky. Behrens comes in, gets the puck off to Jay Moore. Moore in the circle. Pioneers look for a break right out front of the goal, and Pye poked that away before it got through to Engevic. And Olson cleared it into the Northern Michigan bench area. The faceoff will stay just inside the Northern Michigan blue line. And you know, the man in the penalty box, John Good, it looked earlier in the season like he might be gone for the season with a back problem. And it's certainly a big boost for the Wildcats to have him back there on the blue line.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, Johnny was down the dumps because he heard that he was going to have surgery, and, you know, and when he went to Rochester at the Mayo Clinic, he found out that he didn't have to have surgery and be back, you know, within a couple weeks. So things really turned around.
And of course, the senior pairing of John Good and Daryl Olson, both have been playing outstanding hockey, as has the whole defensive core out front of Bill Pye. A minute and a half left in Good's minor penalty. Pioneers on the power play. Deep in his own zone. Brown takes it away from Russo. Pioneers, though, recover quickly. Will try and break out through center ice. Pass coming up. This is Jay Moore. Moore drops the pass. First person there is Garrow. Good effort hustling back to back check. Knocks it back to the Denver blue line. A minute 5 left in the power play opportunity. MacArthur give and go. And fanning on the shot in the corner is Engelvik. Wildcats clear back down the ice. Looked like a dangerous scoring situation for DU. But strike 2 was the call. Pioneers tried once again with 45 seconds remaining in the Good penalty. McBride circling, pulls up top of the circle, fires it down. Pye deflects it out of the corner. Cleared back to the blue line, held by McBride. Cross ice to Summers. His shot gets deflected away by Antos. Plandowski, the first person there, clears it all the way back down into the Denver zone. Wildcats change up with Lamarck and Drake. 25 seconds left in the Wildcat penalty to John Good. Pioneers start off with a right side pass coming up to Markovich. In over the Wildcat line, drop pass, quick shot, Shields sails wide. Markovich holds at the left point. Takes a look, 5 seconds left in the Good penalty to Summers, down low. That's broken up nicely by Sukharov. Cleared back out to center ice by Dallas Drake. Wildcats back at full strength. A good job penalty killing by NMU. Darren McBride turns. His pass intercepted by Jacobson. He ducks right back into the Denver zone. Tries a centering pass across. That's deflected, and Shields comes away for Denver. Shields backing over the line. Poke checked nicely by Warenka. Pioneers control in the center ice zone. 1:15 remaining opening period. Northern Michigan by a goal. It's 2-1. Berger, the go-ahead goal for Northern Michigan late here in the first period on the power play. Jacobson tries to hop in again to take it away from Russo. Can't do so. Russo still has it. Clears it down into the Northern Michigan zone. Under a minute to go in the opening period. Bodies crash into the near side corner. Coming away with the puck is Howe. Howe on the backhand turns it down low. Across the crease, no one there for Denver. A little bit in front of Eric Morano. Howe holds just inside the blue line. Wildcats can't get it out right now. Quick shot sails, and that just went just wide that time off the stick of Morano as he knocked it down, then let it go. Cats finally get it back out in the center ice. Under half a minute left in the opening period. Daryl Olson will start it up for Northern. Giveaway. Quick shot right on, and Pye makes the save. As Olson came back to cover up also, Wildcats clear it down into the Denver zone. Down under 15 seconds left opening period. Pioneers will try it one more time. Sukharov intercepts in the neutral zone. Under 5 seconds left. First period will come to a close, but we'll have an icing call first all the way back down into the Denver zone.
You know, sometimes I wish they just let the 2 seconds run out. I think you agree with me there, Tom.
Well, I do. You know, the first period just wasn't meant to end right yet, Dave.
Was it fate, perchance?
I don't know, but this first period has taken better than 40 minutes to play a 20-minute period.
Well,
And,
we've had so many penalties, you know, it's unbelievable how many he's called, you know, tonight compared to last night. I don't think we had this many penalties all last night.
That is a very long first period of action here tonight. Face off, hopefully the final one of the first period, off to the left side of Kerrigan. Plandowski will take it for Northern Michigan. And Howe, as the first period comes to a close, finally, and the Wildcats, after 20 minutes of play, have a 2-1 lead. Coming up in between the first and second periods, we'll be looking at the Wildcat feature. This week it's on Bill Pye.
Thank you for calling Togo's.
Yes, Togo's. I would like a large number 16 delivered to 1900 Bluff Street.
Okay, we'll have that to you right away. There you go, Dave. 1900 Bluff Street.
Okay.
It's a bird. It's a plane. No.
It's a sub! Dine in, take out, or call for quick delivery at Togo's, home of the original sub sandwich.
My first time at goal was came 4 games in the second season. I was only 6 years old, and everyone on the team took turns playing net. Well, it was my chance, and I got a shutout my first game. I did really good, so I played again, and I got another shutout, and I don't know, from that day on, I just was a goalie. And the next year I was recruited by a midget travel team in Redford Township, and I played goal again, and that's where I got looked at by an open team the following year called the Michigan Blades, and you know, it was a good experience because I had a lot of fun and met a lot of new people, and just as a kid to be on the best team in Detroit just helped me as a goaltender. My Pee Wee minor year, there was a new team called CompuWare, and that was like the big organization in Detroit. Just, you know, it's a computer software, and that was the team of Detroit. I mean, they were the richest, and I played for that team for 3 years. So that Bantam major year, I played for Rocco Bulldogs. We didn't do very well, but I did get a lot of shots, which helped me make the midget major CompuWare team, which was, the team was composed of 16-year-olds, and I was only 15, and that's where I played with Eric Lamarck and Pete Podrasky, guys on this team. But the highlight of my career came when I played for Team USA in Lake Placid on the 16 and 17-year-old team. We got to play teams from all over the world, including Czechoslovakia and West Germany. That year I was playing for Team USA. I was also playing juniors for the St. Clair Shores Falcons. I was only 16 years old, and that was a big step for me because everyone else on the team was 18 and 19. So I think that was a big influence on my career. I also had a goalie coach named Quint Rhea who helped me out and who still helps me out today. During my 2 years with the Falcons, I also played in the Chowder Cup, which is a summer tournament in Detroit, and we go to Boston and play teams out in Boston and Chicago area. Also during the spring, I was selected for the 86 and 87 Junior Olympic teams. The 86 team, we went to the final game and ended up losing to Minnesota in the final game. And then our coach that year was Walt Kyle, who was our assistant coach here at Northern. This experience alone helped me get selected for the U.S. Junior Select team, the 17-year-old team. And I think this was the experience I needed to be scouted and offered a scholarship here at Northern. When I got to Northern my freshman year, it was a big adjustment for me. You know, I thought I'd come in and play 15 or 20 games, you know. I did play 10, but it was because Mike got hurt. But it was a big adjustment for me. I'd come in and, you know, shots were just, you know, they were just hitting off posts, and, you know, I got frustrated a lot, but I just kept working and working. And it improved my skills tremendously, you know. You know, playing in the games, I guess, helped, but I think practice itself improved me a lot. In practice, I like to concentrate on my angles and just doing the right things, you know. You can pick up bad habits in practice by being lazy and not concentrating. So I like to concentrate, and, you know I'm not going to stop every shot, and I just go out there and try to be confident and just do the right things out there. One of the main things I worked on this summer was working on my shot, and I think that's really helped me. You know, I do make a few dumb mistakes out there, but, you know, I think it helps the team-wise when I can play the puck. It's like a third defenseman out there. I was chosen by my fellow teammates my freshman year as the most improved player of the team. I think I was chosen for that award because of my work ethic. I like to stay out after practice, take a few more shots, and I think the guys kind of gave me that honor for my work ethic. And there's always time for improvement, and that's the nature of goaltending. There's always time for improvement.
got a dream. It comes from the heart of the heartland. I can make my dream, 'cause I take my dreams right from the heart of the heartland. Right from the heart of the heartland. I wanna reach for the best, got it all here in my hand. Wherever I go, gonna let 'em know I come right from the heart of the heartland.
In the heartland, people know what it means to reach for a dream. That's where Old Style is brewed. Brewed with a dream. Not to be the biggest beer in America, just the best.
I got a dream, I got a dream. It comes from the heart of the heartland. Right from the heart of the heartland.
Reach for the best. Old Style beer.
Sweaters, sweaters, sweaters at Getz's in Marquette. Sweaters for him in wool, wool blends, washable acrylics, and cotton, in V-necks, crew necks, shawl collars, and cardigans. And Getz's has a big selection in big and tall sizes. See the great selection of women's sweaters. Getz's has this year's bright fashion colors, shaker knits, and this year's longer look. And a sweater from Getz's makes a great gift. Getz's, a downtown tradition, 218 South Front Street, Marquette.
Welcome back to Marquette's Lakeview Arena. Tom McCord along with Dave Porter, and the Wildcats, Dave, have a one-goal lead, 2-1 after a very long first period.
Yeah, it was very long. It was almost an hour long, and you know, I think Denver accomplished what they intended to do. You know, they took control of the game for a while, and you know, they came out only one goal behind as to last night where they came out 2-0 behind. So you know, on the aspect of Denver, I think that they accomplished, you know, mostly what they wanted to do.
Engovic got Denver off to what they wanted to do, a one-goal lead at 7:24. The assist to Moore and Russo. Let's take a look at this one on a replay.
Okay, here's a pass over to Engovic. He just lets it go, and you know, I'm not still to this point not sure if our defenseman deflected it or not, but as it is, it got by Billy.
Northern Michigan came right back 30 seconds later to tie it up at 1 on a break-in by Antos off a pretty pass from Darrell Olson.
Yeah, it was a very nice pass. You know, as we can see here in a moment, you know, Darrell picks the puck up along the side of the net there, along the side of the boards right here, and he just sees Dean breaking, and he gives him the pass, and Dean just blew up by the goaltender, Kerrigan.
And the go-ahead goal for Northern Michigan came off the stick of Phil Berger on the power play. Once again, another pretty pass, Galicki and Olson assisting for Olson, his second assist in the first period.
Yeah, you know, that was another pretty play, as we'll see in a second here. What happens on this goal is that Jeff picks it up along the side of the board, so he skates with it, and he holds onto it, fakes a shot, and then right at the last second he passes over to Phil, and he just put it in the empty net.
Second period hockey action underway. From the face-off, cleared down into the Denver zone, cleared all the way back up ice. Giving chase is Darrell Olson. He'll circle around in behind the Wildcat net. Pass goes astray. Loose puck right out front of the goal. Blocked out there by the Wildcat defense, and coming away with the puck is Jeff Galicki. Galicki backing over the line. Drop pass Ward. Shot for Ward, and Eddie just missed the tip in and went wide of the Denver goal. Shields back the other way. Has Christoffoli on his left. Being bumped off the puck by Darrell Olson. Christoffoli moves in to take the puck. Takes a hit there from Dallas Drake, who goes down. Play still loose in the Northern Michigan zone. Wildcats will try and bring it back out the center. They just dump it back to the Denver line. Moved right back into the Northern Michigan zone. Bill Pye out of the goal. Holds it up there, and Darrell Olson comes away. Long pass up the right side for Ed Ward. In over the line offside was Dallas Drake. Will make that Troy Jacobson. Face-off will stay in the center ice zone. And the first period shots on goal, Dave. Denver had 16 shots. Northern Michigan only 9 goalie saves. Pye made 15, including several big saves on the Denver forwards.
Yeah, you know, Billy had a very good first period, as he did last night, too, where he had a lot of shots. And, you know, if he just continues playing, you know, steady, then we should be all right.
Denver controls from the face-off. A clearing pass fails to clear the zone. Good has a shot deflected off the end glass. Around in behind the goal, clearing it back out into center ice is Summers. Pioneers come away with Barons in over the Northern Michigan line. Bumped off the puck by Jacobson. John Good there also. Play loose. John Good will circle back and try and beat Barons to the puck. Does so. Wildcats will clear the zone up through center ice for Berger. Knocked back into the zone by Troy Jacobson, bothering his man right over to the Wildcat bench. Back into the Denver zone. John Good at the red line, clears it back in, delayed offside. Northern Michigan touches up. MacArthur takes a look, throws it back the other way. Behrens dumps it down into the zone. McBride coming around the side, quick shot, and Pye goes down to cover up on that. A good save to start the second period for Bill Pye.
Yeah, that was a good save there. You know, the speedster McBride cut in on the outside around Lou Malone there, and he just tried to give it a little, stutter shot on Billy Pye, but Billy held his ground and made the save.
Played just over rather 2 minutes in the second period. Northern Michigan holding on to that 1-goal lead. Wildcats looking for their, 11th win in the last 12 games? 10th
yeah. And the 9th, yeah.
I was right the first time. A drive right on, and Kerrigan blocks that. The rebound sails wide as he got crashed into. Kerrigan turned loose puck and score! I'll tell you right now, Dave, Denver's going to be upset with Kerrigan down.
They're going to be very upset that the ref did not call the whistle there on the goal.
See if we can pick this up on the replay. You can see the Wildcat crashing into Kerrigan. Kerrigan's still there. And the gimme for Daryl Flandowski, as Kerrigan being attended to by Pioneer trainer Pat Berry. And usually with that goaltender down and the defenseman coming around with the puck, they will blow the whistle.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what Ralph Backstrom's complaining about right now.
I don't know if we can get a shot of Ralph Backstrom on the Pioneer bench, but he was just screaming at Dewey Marcus a moment ago. He still is. It's one angry Frenchman down there behind the Pioneer bench.
Very angry. That's Daryl's third goal, and hopefully, he had a goal last night, and hopefully he's breaking out of that shell that he's been in for the first half of the season.
Kerrigan up and about in the Pioneer crease area. The Wildcats on the goal at 2:23 in the second period. Take a 2-goal lead now at 3-1. Ralph Backstrom still having his save from behind the Denver bench. Cleared down into the Northern Michigan zone by Markovich from the faceoff. Darrell Olson takes it in behind his own goal. Held in at the blue line, a drive by Russo, loose puck right in the crease area, and that puck just went wide of the goal post on the right side. Dangerous situation for the Wildcats. Play still loose in the Northern Michigan zone. Wildcats need to clear that puck out of the zone right now. Don't want to let the Pioneers back into the game right off the bat here in period number 2. Play tied up in the corner. Face-off will stay in the Northern Michigan zone.
I don't think Denver was too happy with that call. It just, on the goal by Daryl Plandowski, and on this first shift back, it looks like they're, going all out and headhunting or whatnot. And so far, this last, 30 to 40 seconds, they've been in the Wildcat zone all over them.
Definitely trying to get the quick goal to get them back in the hockey game, much like Northern Michigan did when Antos got the goal 30 seconds after Engovics early in or midway in the first period. Being asked to leave the face-off circle, or maybe not. Eric Morano skates around and comes back in. Ralph Backstrom still giving an earful. That's what we're waiting for right now over at the Pioneer bench to Dewey Marcus.
Getting right in Marcus's mug there.
I don't think Dewey needs another mug either.
I think he's got a handful already.
I think something about only a mother could love or something like that.
I don't know if his mother would love him right now.
Well, his would, but I don't think Ralph Backstrom's mother would. Puck back into the Denver zone. 16:53 left, second period. Morano up through center ice for the Pioneers and over the Northern Michigan line. A quick shot, and that went over the shoulder of Bill Pye over top of the Wildcat goal. Pioneers still buzzing around in the Northern Michigan zone. Puck dropped in behind the goal. Nobody there but a Pioneer being bumped off the play in behind the net. Centering pass off to the side. Morano still has the puck in the near side corner. Kevin Scott. Sukharov finally gets it out of the zone up into center ice off the stick of Jeff Galicki. Scuffle will make that Shayak, and a scuffle going on right in front of the Denver bench. And we've got another scuffle going on down here. Something's going to happen here pretty quick, Dave.
It's like Kevin Scott there cut in front of the Pioneer goaltender, and after the whistle, and he tried to get out of the way, but Kerrigan just kind of lifted his stick, and it made it look like Kevin ran into him. Mark Rousseau gave him a little shove over there by the sideboards.
Face-off on the play that was offside will be just outside the Denver blue line. Pete Podrasky has it knocked away. Pioneers charge right back into the zone. A centering pass. That's broken up by the Wildcat defense. Loose in the crease area and cleared away by Darrell Olson. Puck for Summers back out in center ice. Cleared right back into the Northern Michigan zone. Pete Podrasky in behind his own goal off to Darrell Olson. Jeff Galicki starts it out on the left side. Has it taken away by Dave Shields. Gets it back and finally just whips it down the ice. I think that's about what the Cats have to do at the moment, is just get it out of their own end. Denver seems intent on getting the next goal.
You know, that's the best thing you can really do right there, is to you know, whenever the opposing team is all over in your defensive zone, you know, that's the best thing to do, is just, you know, ice it and, you know, try to regroup with another faceoff.
Dallas Drake will come out to take this one. Faced there by number 14, Dave Shields. Shields along with Lance Momotani and Ed Christofoli for the Pioneers. Wildcats charge back up through center ice. This is Dallas Drake. Drake around the outside, coming right in on goal. Save by Kerrigan. Puck loose in the crease area for a moment. Ed Ward in behind the goal. Ward tries to get it back to Galicki in behind the goal. Has a handful with Summers. Takes a shot from Summers. Gives one back. Still being held along the far side. Finally, the puck to Momotani up through center ice for Denver. Tries to go around the outside of Olsen. A quick shot, and Pye closes the short side on that one. Bumped off the puck in behind the goal. The Wildcats clear back to the center red line. We've played 5 minutes here in the second period. Wildcats have the only goal of period number 2. Lead the hockey game by a score of 3-1. Clearing pass back out into center ice. Podrasky picks up an errant pass. Back in over the Denver line offside, as Jacobson was a half step in early.
Yeah, it looked like Troy was on the other side of the blue line there, and Phil Berger had the puck there, and he tried to cut across the blue line with it. And in order for Troy not to hit Phil with the skate blade, he had to lift his leg up, and that caused the offside.
Jacobson, Brown, and Berger for Northern Michigan. Warenka with Lou Malone back on the Wildcat defense. Wildcats going with the exact same lineup that they had on Friday night. That resulted in the 9-2 victory over the Pioneers. Things are a little harder to come by tonight. Cats 3, Pioneers 1. MacArthur bumped off the puck by Berger right at the Wildcat blue line. Jay Moore flips it back into the northern zone. Lou Malone turns, avoids a check. Puck dumped off the far side boards, back out into center ice. Greg Moore at his own blue line, clears back into the Northern Michigan zone off the stick of Engelvik, and look out, here comes Berger on a quick break. In over the Denver line, Pioneers hustle back though. Berger can't control the puck, and coming away back to center ice is Greg Moore. 3-on-2 Denver, loose man in front of the goal, good deflection by Brad Warenka to break that play up. In behind the goal, Pioneers still dangerous. Centering pass goes off to the side of the Wildcat goal, and Bill Pye says, I got it. Face off to his left side.
We got some pushing and shoving there in front of the net of Billy Pye. Jay Moore had the puck in the corner. He tried to flip it out in front, but Billy just snagged that there to hold it for a face-off to his left side.
You know, and just previous to that, Dave, a good defensive effort by Brad Warenka as Denver had the open man coming down the right wing that time.
Yeah, it was. You know, it was a 3-on-2 there, and Brad picked the guy up, so, you know, the pass couldn't get across.
A good shot from behind as we look at Dean Antos getting ready to take the face-off deep in the Northern Michigan zone. Dean, a fine-looking sophomore for the hockey Wildcats, coming into the game tonight with 8 goals, 11 assists, 19 points on the season. had a 37-point season last year as a freshman. Pioneers control in the Northern Michigan zone. Along the near side boards, Howe has it knocked away. Antos will get it back to center ice for Eric Lamarck. Back to the Denver blue line. Pioneers just throw back to the center red. Sukharov whips it right back in. Kerrigan out of the Denver goal to stop it. Game of catch being played right now between the red line and the Denver goal line. An elbow right in front of the Northern Michigan bench as Antos took one from McBride, and McBride is going to go. Good shot of Rick Conley there behind the Wildcat bench. He was up in a big hurry.
Coach looked a little steamed on that hit there, and rightfully so. You know, Darren McBride came flying in there with the elbow, and he's going to sit for 2 minutes, which he deserves. 4 minutes. Maybe a little unsportsmanlike afterwards, Tom?
That could be, but Ralph Backstrom waving the towel down at the Denver bench right now. They may end up with another one. Four minutes on the board for Darren McBride. Ralph Backstrom's going to have to take off his coat pretty soon down there.
He's going to probably have, if he does that, he's going to have probably big coffee stains there.
Whoa. Wildcats with a 4-minute power play opportunity. So far on the night, they're 1 of 3. This is their 4th and 5th power play opportunities of the evening. Cleared back into the Northern Michigan zone. Let's set up the Wildcat power play. Darrell Olson, Pete Podrasky will be back on the blue line. Dallas Drake, Antos, and Berger. Berger clears it down into the Denver zone. Summers, first person there for the Pioneers. Held up by Drake along the far side boards, but finally cleared down the ice by Denver. Wildcats change up on the fly. Puck loosened behind the Northern Michigan goal. Podrasky will come away with it. Up for Dallas Drake. Galicki and Lamarck on the wings right now. Drake down in the far side corner. Takes a look to set it up. Back to Podrasky, across to Olson. Wildcats have scored on 3 of the last 4 power play attempts. Lamarck a drive, and oh, what a save by Kerrigan as Lamarck one-timed it, and Kerrigan was definitely sharp on that one.
You know, that was a good play there by Pete Podrasky. You know, he faked the pass over to Darrell Olson, and he just gave a little flip pass to Eric Lamarck over here on the left-hand side, and Eric just gave it a one-timer, but Kerrigan saw the whole play develop.
You know, the one-time is something that you guys practice. I've seen you practice it during the weekly skates during the week.
Yeah, you know, that's a good play because, you know, it could catch the goalie, you know, off guard, and, you know, get a lot quicker shot off, you know, by one time rather than to stop then tee it up.
And I know from the practices that I watched, Lamarck was one of the best, I thought, at one-timing the shot from in the slot area. At least the day I watched it anyway. Play whistled down at the Denver line, and we'll have a penalty coming up, an interference or a hold. Jeff Galicki will go back in, maybe a little bit of a makeup call there from Dewey Marcus. A little bit of an appeasement to Mr. Backstrom in behind the DU bench. As Galicki negates power play number 1. Oh, hooking the call. That was going to be my third choice.
Hooking? Third choice, eh? Well,
hold of the interference was the first 2.
Combination of the 2.
Yeah, that's what we said last night.
A little deja vu.
It's funny how things happen to replay from time to time.
Yeah.
We'll skate 4-on-4 for the next 2 minutes. Almost at the midway point in the hockey game. 11:50 left in period number 2. Cats by a deuce at 3-1. Starting out of his own zone is Mike Markovich. Center ice pass to Shields in over the Northern Michigan line. Shields down in the near side corner, has it taken away. Cleared back out into center ice. Turning is Christoffoli with a burst of speed. Good runs him off the play nicely just inside the Northern Michigan blue line. Russo comes across and takes the seat for his efforts. Good comes across and looks at Christoffoli, and Christoffoli says, "You wanted to hit me." Loose puck to the side of the goal, and Pye has to be alert and make a save there. Another shot, and that went off the skate of Bill Pye. Good chance by Christoffoli. Plays still loose in behind the Northern Michigan goal. A centering pass goes off the skate of a Wildcat. Back in behind the goal, it's Christofoli. Christofoli coming from the side, drops it back to the blue line, and that'll come back out into center ice. And the Wildcats have a 2-on-none break. Phil Brown, the trailer is Garrow Brown, and the save by Kerrigan. Brown still with the rebound, a headlock being put on Garrow, penalty coming up on Denver. Olsen a blast, and that misses everything. Back out into center ice, Pye out of the Northern Michigan goal. Cats with the extra attacker. Berger goes around the outside and over the Denver line. Pulls up along the far side boards, delayed penalty coming up on Denver, back out in the center ice. Daryl Olsen turns. Wildcats have had the extra attacker on for about 40 seconds now. Finally, Kerrigan touches the puck. The penalty will be called. And the Pioneers will be down another man.
That's right, Tom. And in 22 seconds, it's going to be a 5-on-3 power play for the Cats.
And an excellent opportunity coming up for Northern Michigan, as Dave Porter just pointed out. Christofoli for holding. Christofoli skating dejectedly to the penalty box. Joining fellow winger Darren McBride over there. And between Christofoli and McBride, two fellows that you'd rather see off the ice than on the ice.
Oh, definitely. You know, they're two of their better players, and they're sitting side by side in the box there. So that's a good place for those two to be on for Northern.
Be kind of a nice couple over there, don't they?
Yeah, as long as they don't start holding the hands. I think that policeman in there is going to leave if he sees that happening.
I wondered what those fellas were doing over in the penalty box. Face-off off to the left side of Kerrigan. 18 seconds left in the Galicki minor penalty for hooking. And when Jeff comes out of the box, Northern will be on a 5-on-3 power play for 51 seconds. Wildcats back in over the Denver line. They pull up. Galicki back on the ice right now. Olsen throws it down into the corner. Kerrigan out of his goal again. First person there will be Antos. Takes a hit. Podrasky comes away with the puck. Wildcats now with a two-man advantage. A drive from the blue line, and that gets deflected away by Antos. Wide of the goal. Morano for Denver. Bumped off the puck by Antos, but carrying on is Summers. Summers to Morano. Back into the Wildcat zone. Wildcats with a two-man advantage for another 20 seconds. Need to get down and get set up into the Denver zone. A bouncing puck across ice for Dallas Drake. Drake on the backhand coming from the side right out front of the goal, and that got tipped away as Lamarck was the intended receiver of that. Lamarck again from the side gets bumped off the puck, hauled to the ice by MacArthur. Jay Moore comes away, and that'll kill off the first part of that Denver shorthanded situation. Still 44 seconds left in the second Denver penalty. Pioneers winding up as Russo, and that shot gets deflected wide of the goal. Pye just jumps on the puck in the crease area. Face-off will stay in the Northern Michigan zone, and that makes Northern Michigan 1 of 5 or 1 of 6. 1 of 5, working on number 6.
You know, that's a good play there by Billy Pye to freeze the puck. You know, we were getting a little scrambly there, and I think what he tried to do there is just freeze it and, you know, give us time to, you know, get things together. We have 34 seconds still left in the power play, and by getting a whistle, you know, it gives us time to regroup and, you know, get things situated.
Waiting on the official to pick up pieces of a splintered stick that's down to the right side of the Pioneer goal. That stick belonged to MacArthur, whom last we saw was laying on top of the Wildcat deep in the Denver zone.
You know, we got 8:53 left here in the second period, Tom. You know, Cats are up 3-1. You know, if we can capitalize on this power play here and go up 4-1, you know, that could break the back. You know, this is a very important goal. You know, if Denver gets it, it cuts the lead to 3-2. And if we get it, you know, we go up by 3 goals. So, you know, this is a very important goal, this next one.
You know, Rick Comley pointed out after the hockey game last night that he never, ever thought that Denver was really out of the hockey game.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, like I said, you know, last night, Denver or any team in the WCHA for that matter, will never give up. Like last year when we played Denver here, they scored 4 goals, in what, 8 or 9 minutes. So, you can never count any team out, especially with the offensive, power that Denver has.
One of the longest 8 or 9 minutes I recall calling all last season. Pioneers from the face-off a blast, and Pye comes out to cut the angle on that, knocks it into the corner. Berger up the board, still 20 seconds left on the Northern power play attempt. Berger around the outside of Summers, backhand pass right out in front. And Plandowski just deflected that over top of the Denver goal. Back to the blue line, Warenka cross ice, Sukharov a drive, and that gets deflected out front by Behrens, cleared back down the ice, and the Wildcats are now 1 for 6 as the Pioneers are back at full strength. Christoffoli back on the ice. Play loose in the Northern Michigan zone. Plandowski clears up into the center ice area, steps in to pick up the puck, takes the slash in over the Denver line, dropped to Scott, a drive, and that missed by about 1.5 feet. Berger pinches in, held at the line by Warenka. Back in behind the goal. Kevin Scott avoids Kerrigan. Berger wishes he had avoided the Denver defenseman as he takes a seat on the ice. And a little pushing and shoving, and Berger now being held down by the Denver winger. That being Rick Behrens. Quite a collision over there between Berger and I believe that was Mike Markovich originally.
Yeah, and then Rick Behrens came in there and had to get his 2 cents in. So could have been the penalty there for it could have been roughing or whatnot.
This young fella, he's watching the Wildcats somewhere in the crowd. From the face-off, Pioneers control. Coming out of his own zone, this is Biggs. Darren Biggs up over the Northern Michigan line, tries to go around the outside of Darrell Olson, has no success. Antos in behind the goal. Puck left there, Olson hauls his man down to the ice. Play still into the far side corner. Olson turns away, throws it back in behind the goal for Podrasky. Podrasky takes a big hit along the near side boards as McBride stepped into him. Puck back down into the Denver zone. First person there is Russo, being bothered by Eric Lamarck. Pass back up into the center ice zone. And being stood up right at the Northern Michigan line is McBride, and the play whistled down on the offside.
McBride, right at the last second there, saw Darrell Olson coming across the blue line. Darrell was just getting ready to crunch him, and McBride just barely hopped out of the way.
And it's a good thing for Mr. McBride that he saw number 66 cruising in, or else
Darrell would have been saying, "Thanks for coming."
And McBride would have been saying, "Where am I?" Or "How did I get here?" One of the two. Pioneers hold the Shields from the faceoff right to Bill Pye. Pye covers up. And the faceoff will remain in the Wildcat zone. 6:54 left in the second period. Wildcats lead by 2 at 3-1.
The Cats' third goal was scored by Darrell Plandowski with the assist going to Eric Lamarck at the 2:23 mark of the second period.
From the faceoff, Wildcats control, bank it off the short glass all the way back into the Denver zone. That'll be an icing call against Northern Michigan.
So far this period, Tom, I think that the Cats have, controlled the period, even though Denver has had times of spurts. But that's about as far as Denver's offense has gone. This game so far in spurts. It started out really strong, but then towards the end or the middle of the period, they kind of let up. So that's how their game has been going on so far, is usually in spurts.
Jacobson wins the faceoff for Northern Michigan. Play along the far side boards. Berger can't control it. Comes back, though, to John Good. He just clears it back out the center ice. Summers clears it right back in. Sukharov takes it right back out. Clears down into the Denver zone. This is Dan Brooks from St. Paul, Minnesota. Up the boards for Summers. Summers back through center ice. Off the Christoffoli, offside at the Northern Michigan line was Shields. Face off back into the center ice zone.
You know, Shields is over there on the left-hand side screaming for the puck, and right at the last second he thought Summers was going to pass it to him, but he went the other way with it, and that pulled Dave Shields offside.
6:17 left, second period, 3-1 Northern Michigan. Wildcat goals, Dean Antos, his 9th, Phil Berger, his 12th, Daryl Flandowski, his 3rd. For the Pioneers, Engovic, for the second night in a row, has a Pioneer goal. And for Engovic, it was his 7th goal of the season. Play deep in the Northern Michigan zone. Malone picks up the loose puck in behind the goal. Ward clears up into center ice. Malone will step up to carry on. Long pass to Galicki in over the line. Galicki just chops it down towards the corner. Moore, the first person there. Ward runs him down. But the Pioneers come away with the puck with Jay Moore back through center ice. Jay Moore in over the line, feeds a pass down low. Pye tries to grab it, can't do it. Malone comes in to take the rebound, just dumps it back out into center ice. 5.5 to play, second period. Brad Warenka steps in to pick it up in his own zone. Warenka off the boards for Ward. Wildcats will go for the line change. Pioneers have an opportunity to break back up ice with Darren McBride. McBride back in over the Northern Michigan line, fires off a shot, and that just missed on the short side as Pye went down. Barron steps into his man, that being Dave Shyak along the near side boards. Puck cleared up into the Northern Michigan bench. Face-off will remain in the neutral center ice zone.
You know, Darren McBride there, he's definitely one of the fastest players in the WCHA, if not in the nation. And, you know, once he gets speed going, it's pretty hard to stop him. And just when he got over the blue line there, he let a quick shot go. I think that caught Billy off guard a little bit.
Definitely looked to surprise the Wildcat goaltender, and fortunately it was wide.
Fortunately.
Olsen steps in from the face-off, avoids a high stick from MacArthur, clears it down into the Denver zone. Lamarck wasn't so lucky. Plandowski has a stick come up around his head, and we're going to have a charging call coming, and that'll go against Russo of Denver.
Well, it looks like we're getting a few more penalties this period too there, Tom. Not as many, but still.
15:05, the time for the charging call on Russo. And I'll tell you what, Dave Porter, looking at the Denver roster, one fellow that I don't miss from last year was Saltenreich.
Saltenreich, yes. You know, he was a backbreaker every time we played Denver. You know, he's so small. You know, he's so small and fast, and his favorite play was to hang around the opposing blue line and wait for that breakaway pass.
I thought that last year he was probably about the quickest player in the WCHA.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if he was the fastest, but from a dead start, you know, he was the quickest.
Wildcats on the power play for the 7th time. So far, they're 1 for 6. Antos back on the blue line to Olsen. Olsen tees it up for the wrist shot right on. Kerrigan the save. Loose puck cleared back down the ice by the Pioneer defenseman Dan Brooks. We'll set the Wildcats on the power play. Antos centering Berger and Plandowski. Olsen and Podrasky back on the blue line. A minute 25 left in the Northern Michigan power play. Plandowski back in over the line, cross to Darrell Olsen. Olsen takes a look. Podrasky down low to Plandowski. Plandowski in the far side circle, down in. Or make that Antos a shot, and down to cover it up is Kerrigan. Good save that time by the DU goaltender.
You know, that was a good play there by Dino. He turned around and he at first was going to pass over to Phil, then he saw that Phil was covered by the defenseman, so in the same motion he just directed the puck right towards the net and almost squeaked through Kerrigan.
Out trying to kill the power play for Denver is Mike Markovich, along with Morano, Bruce Robinson, and Ken MacArthur. Little discussion as to whom will take the face-off, and Morano says, I will. Moves in to face Daryl Plandowski, who has a goal in each game this weekend. No, he doesn't. I'm thinking he does, but he doesn't. I wish he did. What am I talking about here? Yeah, he does. He had the 3rd goal tonight. I was right the first time.
correction.
Yeah. Denver controls the face-off. MacArthur clears it down the ice. Plandowski does have a goal in each game. Wildcat sophomore starting to get a little unwound here, as this announcer is right now. Back up through center ice. Wildcats on the power play for 50 seconds. Kerrigan clears it along the far side boards. This is Morano. Held in at the blue line. No, it isn't. Face off back out into center ice.
Well, it was held in if Pete would have been inside the blue line there, but it was a good effort there to knock it out of the air.
Wildcats will change up the power play one more time with 43 seconds left in the charging penalty to Mark Russo. New line combination, Dallas Drake, Jeff Velicki, and Eric Lamarck. Warenka, along with John Good, the point man. Good's pass off a Denver stick and cleared back down into the Northern Michigan zone by Summers. This is number 5, Brad Warenka, back in behind his own goal for Good. Good around the end boards for Dallas Drake, cross ice to number 5, Warenka. 20 seconds left in the Northern Michigan power play. Warenka in over the Denver line. Around and behind the Pioneer goal. Bumped off the play there momentarily. Loose puck to Galicki. Back on the blue line. This is John Good off to Warenka. Back to Good. In the circle. This is Dallas Drake to Good. Good with a slap shot. Deflected at just inside the line by Shields. That kills off the Denver shorthanded situation. The Pioneers are back at full strength. Wildcats now 1 for 7 on the power play. 2:40 left in the second period. Wildcats lead by a pair. It's 3-1 Northern Michigan. Drake backhands it in behind the goal for Lamarck. Centering pass, and Shayak almost got the backhander off there. Battling for the puck in the near side corner. Coming away with it is Jay Moore for Denver. Dumps it back to the red line. Podrasky clears it in. Brought right back out by Jay Moore. Moore in over the Northern Michigan line for the center of the goal. Loose puck and a penalty coming up on Northern Michigan. Interference will be the call. And the Wildcats, Dave Shayak heading to the box, will be shorthanded for the next 2 minutes.
And that'll almost take care of the rest of the period there, Tom, with Dave going in the box.
Time of the penalty, 17:45 here in the second period. Third Denver power play coming up. The Pioneers are 0 for 2 so far. They'll have Jay Moore, Behrens, Russo, MacArthur, and Engevic. Engevic with the only goal tonight. Loose puck from the faceoff right into the Wildcat crease area. Bill Pye and a host of others all there. Face-off, same circle, same zone.
You know, this is a very important shorthanded situation for the Wildcats here. You know, if they can kill this off, you know, that'll practically end the period. But if Denver is able to score here, it's going to cut the lead to 1 goal with the period just about to end, and that could shift the momentum towards Denver heading into the third period.
Antos wins the faceoff. Wildcats clear the zone with Pete Podrasky. Under 2 minutes to play in the second period. 1:45 left in Shayak's penalty. Jay Moore back through center ice on the fly for Denver. Drop pass and over the line for Engevic. A quick shot. Pye with the save. Rebound loose. And the defense blocked that one out front. Falling to the ice, Dean Antos got in front of it. Wildcats clear it back down the ice. Good effort that time. Pioneers clear up ice for Behrens. That's intercepted by Northern Michigan. Doug Garrow, a good job of stick handling. Clears it back down into the DU zone. Bill Brown steps into MacArthur in the far side corner. Pass goes off. Doug Garrow right in front of the Denver goal. This is Behrens in center ice. Off to Russo. Back for Behrens. Garrow intercepts that. A minute left. A little holding going on at the blue line as Brown and Russo was there together. And both will be going together to the penalty box. Somewhere, Dave, amongst the hold, there seems to have been a slash.
Somewheres. But at this point, we're not quite sure.
18:46, the time of the coincidental minor penalties that will send Brown and Russo to their respective locker rooms here late in the second period.
Look like Mark Rousseau there. He got a penalty for holding, and Phil Brown got a penalty for slashing.
Well, if they awarded 2 points for takedown, we'd have a tie hockey game. But we don't, and it's 3-1 Northern Michigan. Denver still on the power play. It's still 5-on-4 on the power play for the remaining 56 seconds of Shyak's penalty. Down to a minute left in the second period. Long cross-ice pass in over the Northern Michigan line is Markovich. Markovich tries a centering pass. That gets deflected away by John Good. It goes up over the glass and into the crowd. Face-off will be off the Bill Pye's right side.
And with 56 seconds left in the second period, it's a catch 3 and Denver 1 if you're joining us late. With goals going to Antos, Berger, and Plandowski for NMU, and for Denver, Engelvik.
Engelvik not out there now. He was a few moments ago on the Denver power play. This combination has Shields along with Behrens and Lance Momotani. Pioneers control with Shields along the far side boards. Back on the blue line for Summers. Back to Shields, top of the circle. Little catch game going on. Shields fakes the shot. 25 seconds left in Shyak's penalty. Around and behind the goal. Shields snaps off a shot. That gets deflected out front of the Wildcat goal. Shields along the far side boards. Back on the blue line to Summers. Little game of 2-on-2. Shields a drive. It skips through and goes off the side of the goal. In behind the goal is McBride. Back around and behind the cage. A wraparound attempt, and Pye is there. 1 second left. Shyak is back on the ice. A long shot, and Pye got in front of that. Wildcats clear the zone. We'll have an icing call on Northern Michigan. The crowd on their feet. 7 seconds left in the second period.
As well they should be there, Tom. You know, we killed off a very, very important penalty there. Denver was all over the Cat zone. And with killing that penalty with 7 seconds left, you know, that really helped the Cats out.
Face off with those 7 ticks of the clock left will be off to Bill Pye's right side. Pioneers will keep MacArthur out on the blue line along with Dan Brooks. Moving in to take the face-off will be Jim Howe. Wildcats will counter with Dean Antos. When the puck is finally dropped. Finally dropped, puck loose in the circle. Wildcats control it momentarily. 3 seconds left in the second period. The buzzer sounds as we have a little cross-check action down in behind the Wildcat goal. And we'll have a small meeting before the teams head to the locker rooms. It's quicker than expected, though. And both teams will take a rest after 40 minutes of hockey action from Lakeview Arena. Coming up in between periods 2 and 3, we'll be back to take a look at the upcoming events on Breslin. But right now, the Wildcats lead the Pioneers after 2 by a score of 3-1. In between the second and third period at Lakeview Arena, Tom McCord along with Dave Porter. Time to look at the upcoming events on Channel 8. Lots of Wildcat hockey still to come your way as the Northern Michigan Wildcats on the road at Minnesota Duluth. Weather permitting, travel permitting, everything permitting. We'll have the game, the Friday night game, on December 24th from Duluth at a 7 o'clock start. Again on December 27th at 7 p.m. The Northern Michigan takes on defending NC2A champion Lake Superior State. You can see the broadcast of that game on December 31st at 1 p.m. and January 3rd at 7 p.m. Then longtime rival Michigan Tech is on the CAT agenda. You can see the Northern Michigan Tech matchup on January 8th at 3:30, and once again on January 10th at 7 p.m. And then Mike Geary's very hot Northern Michigan women's basketball team swings into action on Channel 8 as they take on Grand Valley State. Broadcast times January 16th at 7 p.m. and once again January 18th at 7 p.m. Northern Michigan with a 3-1 lead over Denver University between the second and third periods. And right now, let's take a look at our hockey tip. And this week, it's on skate maintenance.
When I talk about taking care of skates, we'll talk about two different categories, skate sharpening and what to do with your skates when you get home from the ice rink. Now, skate sharpening is a matter of personal preference. How sharp you want them depends on your individual skills. Some NHL players like to get their skates sharpened every 4 or 5 games, and there are others who will get them sharpened between periods. Now, one way to tell if your skates are dull is to turn the skate over. Rub your fingernail across the edge. If you can take off a piece of fingernail, that means you still have a pretty good edge on your skate blade. If you rub your fingernail across and nothing comes off, then it's time for a sharpening. Now, when you're done skating, we have to still take care of those skates when we get home. But before you get home, the important thing is to take a skate blade and wipe it off. Get all the moisture off of that blade. When you bring the skate home, there will be moisture that will have formed again going from the cold ice arena to your warm house. So it'll be important to wipe the skate blade off one more time before you're done for the night. Now, we don't recommend that you keep your skate inside the skate bag. There's too much moisture in there, and that can deteriorate the skate. One thing we would like to see you do, though, is cover the skate with a cloth material. If you use the hard plastic skate covers that are on the market, that can deteriorate the blade and cause rust. I'll have an example of that here. This skate was probably maintained by using a hard skate cover, and therefore we've had a lot of rust form along the edge. Now, there are two methods of covering your skate blade. One is to use the old hockey sock method. In doing that, we pull the top of the hockey sock over the skate blade, wrap this around, and tuck it in. And that's a nice, inexpensive way of doing it. The other way of doing it is a commercial cover that's on the market, and there are many of those available. And they're usually made of elastic, and they slip right over the blade itself, and that way you can take care of your skate. One more thing that we'd like to ask you to do is to take a piece of newspaper, if you have it available, and pull the tongue out and tuck that newspaper right inside the skate when you're done, especially if your skate is particularly moist or wet from skating outside, or if you sweat profusely. That newspaper will draw some of that perspiration outside the boot and keep the inside dry, and therefore it'll last longer. And if you maintain your skates, you'll get your best performance on the ice.
Now that we've got your attention, let's have your appetite at Van Gogh's Pizza and Lounge, North 3rd, Marquette.
Northern Michigan Wildcats back on the ice getting ready for third period hockey action, leading on the scoreboard by a score of 3-1 over the Denver University Pioneers. Tom McCord along with Dave Porter, and Dave, the Wildcats with the only goal of that second period to take the 2-goal edge, and Daryl Plandowski gets on the board once again this weekend. That's 2 goals for the sophomore.
Yeah, you know, that was kind of an unusual goal there for Daryl with the goaltender Kerrigan laying out. Here we look at it there. You can see Kerrigan off the side of the net, and Eric just dumps it in front there and just lays there, and Daryl comes from behind the net and just puts it in the open net there.
That was the only goal of the second period. shots on goal in the second period once again favored the Denver Pioneers as they outshot Northern Michigan 13-8. And through 2 periods, Bill Pye has made a total of 28 saves in the Wildcat goal. Lucian Kerrigan has been called on to make only 14 in the Denver goal. That's going to loom mighty important here in the third period if Denver keeps getting those numbers of shots.
Well, yeah, you know, they've had 28 so far, and usually that's where we want to keep a team to, you know, in shots for a game. Now, last night they had 43 shots, so I think compared to last night, you know, we're doing better, but still, it should, I think Coach would like to see it down a little bit more.
Well, once again, the Wildcats with 14 shots, 3 goals to show for their efforts, and 14 shots, Dave, isn't a whole lot, but it reflects the type of team that this has been this year. They've capitalized on the opportunities that they've had to have the 2-goal lead.
Yeah, you know, Tom, we try to get as many shots as we can during the game, and you know, once an opportunity presents itself, we like to capitalize on it, you know, as much as we could.
Looking at Lucian Kerrigan doing the stretching exercises down to the Denver goal crease area. Third period hockey action will be getting underway momentarily as both teams getting situated in the penalty box area. 2 Pioneers still sitting things out. 1 Northern Michigan Wildcat, that being Phil Brown. Brown is in there with Mark Russo. They went off together late in the second period. Russo for holding and Brown for the mystery slash. And they still have a late penalty on the board, and evidently they got a penalty at the 20-minute mark, which they did. That was for checking from behind. I didn't even realize that one. Wildcats are on the power play here to start the third period. For Northern Michigan, this will be their 8th power play attempt of the night. The Cats so far are 1 for 7. Plandowski up through the center ice zone for Northern Michigan. Cross ice for Berger. Back to Olsen on the blue line. This is Podrasky. Down low for Plandowski. Back to Darrell in the face-off circle for Olsen on the blue line. Podrasky tipped off the glass and back out into center ice by the Pioneers. Good job that time by the Denver forwards. Antos a drive, and that just sailed wide. Podrasky holds at the right point for Northern Michigan. Dumped down low into the corner. Antos there. Back on the blue line, Podrasky fakes the shot off to Olsen. He'll wind it up. Fire a shot right on, and Kerrigan gets in front of that. Summers picks up the rebound, banks it off the short glass, back up into center ice. Podrasky clears it back into the Denver zone. 45 seconds left in the Denver power play. Galicki back in over the line for Drake, for Berger. Oh, and Berger just tipped it wide. Nice little 3-way passing play that time between Galicki, Drake, and Berger. Berger just missed on the finishing effort. 25 seconds left in the Northern power play. Christopherly back in over the line. Shields for Christopherly. That's broken up nicely by Darrell Olsen. And Brad Warenka will lug it back through center ice. Up to Drake. Drake on the backhand. Back to the blue line and back out into center ice as Olsen, or make that Sukharov, didn't get there quick enough. Sukharov again in the center ice zone. Denver still with a second left in their penalty as icing is called on Northern Michigan. Face off back into the Wildcat zone.
Well, with 1 second left there to Jim Howe's penalty, and the face-off to the left side of Billy Pye, I think Coach is probably going to put out a regular shift now, which he is doing with the Kevin Scott, Doug Garrow, and Dave Shayak line, along with John Good and Phil Sukharov on the point.
We've played a minute 59 here in the third period. Wildcats lead by a pair at 3-1. First period Wildcat goals from Antos and Berger. Second period goal by Plandowski. Glenn Engevick with the lone Denver goal, hence the 3-1 score, Northern Michigan. Denver back at full strength. Kevin Scott through center ice. Scott on the move down the right side. Centering pass for Garrow, and that's intercepted nicely by Behrens, who clears the zone back to the Northern blue line. Pioneers at the Northern blue line, try and get it down in. Kevin Scott intercepts momentarily, battles for the puck along the boards. Jay Moore back to the blue line for Russo. That's tipped out by Garrow. On the move is Kevin Scott again. Scott pulls up in the DU zone, takes a look, cross ice. This is Sukharov at the point. His shot is deflected, and the Pioneers will bring it right back to center ice with Ken MacArthur. Play is delayed on the offside if they try and bring it in, as MacArthur went in ahead of the play. Finally, the Pioneers clear down in behind the Northern Michigan goal. Both teams with almost wholesale line changes. Good has it taken away. This is Darren McBride. McBride pulls up, takes the return pass from MacArthur down low to Howe to McBride. McBride in behind the Wildcat goal, tries to wrap it around, intercepted out front. Lamarca pass up. This is Plandowski. Just dumps it down into the Denver zone. Bouncing puck right to Kerrigan. He's going to hang on as Plandowski, the first person there. Face-off will be off to his left side in the Denver zone.
You know, that was kind of a quick whistle there by the ref. You know, Kerrigan held on to it for no more than a half a second, and he was just getting ready to play it, and the ref called a whistle.
16:45 left in regulation time as we look at number 15 with the third Wildcat goal, also his third of the season, that being Daryl Plandowski. Antos can't control the face-off. Markovich gets it to his defense partner in behind the goal. Pass coming up the left side for McBride. Broken up by Lou Malone at the Wildcat blue line. Play loose right in front of the Northern Michigan bench, cleared down in behind the Wildcat goal. Bill Pye clears it back to the blue line. That's held in. Tipped down into the far side corner where Howe battles with Malone. Howe goes down. Anto steps into his man in the corner, that being McBride. Little pushing and shoving going on with Howe and Malone, and we'll have some penalties coming up here. Both players will head to the penalty box. 3:55, the time of the coincidental minor penalties, to Howe and Malone, who discuss it through the penalty box glass.
Wonder what they were saying there. Wonder if they're giving each other phone numbers or what.
I don't know. Malone might be telling them about a restaurant in Marquette.
Looked like Howe was agreeing with him.
We'll play 4-on-4 for the next 2 minutes. We'll make that 5-on-5. We won't skate short. Nope, we will play 4-on-4. Wildcats had too many men on the ice.
This is Jeopardy. What are 4 players apiece?
There we go. It's called a man short. I didn't hear a buzzer, so I must be right. Face-off off to the left side of Bill Pye, and when it happens, Eric Morano will be there, along with Dean Antos. Puck controlled by the Pioneers. A drive from the blue line by Summers. That missed everything. Brooks pinches down in. Darrell Olson, though, the first person there for Northern. Antos clears it back to the center red line. A minute 45 left in the coincidental minor penalties. Denver back in over the line. A quick shot, and Pye takes that on the stick and drops down to cover up. Face-off remains in the Wildcat zone.
You know, Billy just say that there just to make sure, you know, he wasn't, you know, quite sure if anybody from Denver was coming from behind him or whatnot, so he just played the smart move and just held it for a face-off.
Both teams will stay with the same line combinations. Morano, McBride, Brooks, and big Rod Summers, all 6'4", 215 pounds of them, back on the blue line. Olson picks up the loose puck in behind the Northern Michigan net, off to Eric Lamarck. Pass to Antos in center ice. Coming down 2-on-2 with Olson, and Olson's astride offside at the Denver blue line. And to say the least, Dave Porter, a slow start to a slow hockey game.
This is, you know, there's been a lot of whistles so far in the, you know, the first 4.5 minutes of this third period. And it's kind of hard for the players, you know, to get into the groove of things when there's a lot of whistles, you know, and face-off. But hopefully within the next 15 minutes we'll pick up.
A very choppy hockey game, but a 3-1 Northern Michigan lead nonetheless. And that's a shot of our erstwhile camera crew up here. As
the smiling camera crew.
Well, I didn't see many smiles there. I think they smile with about a minute left when they realize it's almost time to go. Back in over the line, a blast by Shields, and Pye takes that on the stick. Lamarck gives it away, almost a tuck-in by Shields at the side of the goal, but Pye reacted well and got back to the far corner of the net. Galicki along the near side boards. Dumps it up into center ice, too far for Eric Lamarck. Pioneers bring it right back in. Russo a drive, and Pye sticks that aside.
That looked like that was offsides there, Tom, but they didn't call it.
Jeff Galicki picks it up along the far side boards, up to Lamarck. Wildcats coming down 3-on-2, cross ice, right in, score!
Pete Podrasky.
Another nice passing play as the Wildcats hit the trailer. Podrasky, let's take a look at it on the replay.
Eric gets the puck here, and he waits and waits, and he finds Pete over on the far side, and Pete kicks it off the skate and puts it in the far left lower corner.
Good job by Podrasky to receive that pass as it got deflected on the way across. Lamarck and Galicki get the assists. Time of the goal is 5:16 here in the third period, and the Wildcats are now up by 3 at 4-1.
You know, that's a very, very important goal for the Cats there, Tom. You know, it puts them up by 3, and let's see how Denver reacts now.
I would say the next couple of minutes will be critical for the Pioneers and for Northern Michigan. The Cats don't want to give up a quick goal and get Denver right back in the flow of things. John Good turns in behind his own goal, falls down. Pioneers try and pick up that loose puck. Can't do so. Phil Galicki starts off. Up to Dallas Drake. Drake up to the Denver line, doesn't take the puck with him though as the Pioneers poke it away. John Good back inside his own blue line. Clears it back to the DU line. Galicki and Moore go for a ride, and Galicki kind of upends Moore a little bit more. Got a lot of Moores in there.
There should have been a penalty call to Greg Moore there from checking from behind, but to no avail.
We see Jeff Galicki back to the Northern Michigan bench. And you definitely don't have to go very far to find Jeff on the ice.
No, you don't have to go far at all. Jeff takes pretty much what part of the ice he wants to take. And not too many people are going to say anything about it.
Well, you know, it's one thing that's been really impressive. You know, Ron and I have talked about it up here, Dave. And, you know, a year ago, the types of things that Jeff Galicki did for the hockey team were overshadowed by some of the other things he did, whether they be penalties at the wrong time or penalties behind the play. And he, to his credit, has really turned it around this year and has really got everything going in a positive direction.
Oh yeah, you know, like I said, he worked hard this summer, and he's putting that effort and that work onto the ice, and it's really helping him.
Olson upends his man. That's Summers at the Northern Michigan blue line. Antos tries to slip it through for Lamarck. Kerrigan comes way out of the goal, clears it back to center ice. Olson's going to try and blast it anyway. It would have been offside. Podrasky just dumps it down into the DU zone. And it'll be an icing call as it was cleared from the Wildcat side of center ice, and it comes back into the Northern Michigan zone.
As we take a look at Coach Conley there, who wasn't very happy with the call on icing.
What does that mean, that little hand motion there?
What that little hand motion means, it's not a puppet. It means to talk out there and communicate out there.
Amongst the players or amongst the officials?
Amongst the players themselves.
Okay.
That way we know, exactly where we're going to be on the ice and who's open and who's not.
I didn't know if that was some type of Canadian gesture or... McBride down low, right to the crease area, and Pye has to go down and be alert there. Backhand shot, they score! That went through everybody, and Biggs will get the goal. And the Pioneers are right back in the hockey game at 4-2.
You know, Tom, I think that deflected off of... somebody, I wasn't sure in front. Maybe we'll get a look at it on the replay here. Here it is. See, McBride has a puck on the side of the net. He goes to the net and he just shovels it there. The puck comes out to the slot and Biggs just gives it a backhand. Yeah, I think it went off of, is that Darryl Olson?
Yeah, I think it would have been Olson. He's on the defense pairing with Pete Podrasky. Olson doesn't look too pleased out there on the Wildcat blue line right now. Time of the goal is 6:36 here in the third period rather. Pioneers now only down by 2 at 4-2. Howe picks it up, clears it right back into the Northern Michigan zone. Bill Pye out of the goal, tries to clear it up the boards, can't do so. Olson whips it around the glass. Back out to the Denver blue line. Giving chase is Doug Garrow. Loose puck in the Denver zone, knocked down momentarily with the high stick from Scott, but Howe carries on and over the Northern Michigan line, offside at the line. And I'm not sure if that was Biggs or if that was McBride who was offside.
I think that was Darren McBride offside there. He's cutting down the side right next to Jim Howe. And Howe took one step over the blue line. He dropped the pass, but it went back over on the other side of the blue line, which caused an offside.
Shayak, Garrow, and Kevin Scott for Northern Michigan. 13 minutes even left in regulation time in the hockey game. And as we talked about earlier, last year Denver came back from a 4-goal deficit to tie up Northern Michigan. Right now the crowd a little bit on the silent side here at Lakeview Arena after that last DU goal. Sukharov in behind his own goal. Double teamed down there by a pair of Pioneers. McBride fails to get it back to the point. Plandowski gets it across for John Good. Wildcats come away 4-on-2. Good's pass hops over the stick of Plandowski. A little bit of interference going on back there as Plandowski hit the ice. Loose puck to Garrow. His attempt for the point, though, was intercepted by the Pioneers and brought back through center ice by MacArthur. MacArthur stood up right at the Northern Michigan line by Phil Sukharov. And Plandowski comes back the other way. His pass intercepted. He gets it right back at the red line. Up to Lamarck. Lamarck pulls up in the Denver zone. Tries a little centering pass, but was being ridden out of the play. Pioneers come right back. In on the backhand, a blocker save by Pye off the stick of Stockland. Haven't called Stockland's number very often this weekend.
No, he didn't dress in last night's game and get a chance to play here tonight.
Stockland's not a small-sized individual either. 6'1", 200 pounds, a sophomore from Newton Center, Massachusetts.
Wherever that is.
Probably somewhere around Boston. Or Boston.
Everything's around Boston. Even the Harbor.
Whoa, a shot from the faceoff, and I think Pye got a little bit of the glove on top of that one. It was going high anyway. Puck back out into the center ice zone, back into the Denver end. 11:55 left in regulation time. Pioneers pull up in behind their own goal. This is Morano. Morano dumps it up the near side boards. Up through center ice, Morano takes the return pass and over the Northern Michigan line. Cross ice pass, nice setup, a drive, and that's knocked down by Warenka off the stick of Dan Brooks. And the Wildcats once again clear the zone back to the Denver blue line. Cross ice pass, Shields at his own blue line. Intercepted by Sukharov. Taken right back by the Pioneers, coming down 3-on-2. In over the line, Shields centering attempt goes to Phil Brown. Loose puck in the high slot area. Brown tips it back out the center ice. Wildcats change up on the move. Drake line back out for Rick Comley's hockey club. Pioneers right back in over the Northern Michigan line. Shields a shot, and Pye was partially screened on that one. Got a glove on it, now dives on the rebound to the side of the Wildcat goal.
You know, did look like Billy was screened on that one, and he made a good save, and as we were getting ready to clear, it looks like Shields kicked it with his skate, and it came right back to Billy, and he just froze off the side of the net there for a face-off on the right-hand side.
It's a nice-looking couple here at Lakeview Arena.
Was.
Wildcats with Drake control the face-off. Clearing pass up the far side boards. Gobbled up over there by Markovich, and behind the Wildcat goal taken by Olson. Loose puck and a nice block out front by the Wildcat defense. Still loose out there. Defenseman with the block was Podrasky. Wildcats come away 3-on-2. Lead pass for Ward a little bit too far. And the Wildcats will have to come back to lay it offside as the Cats touch up. 10:30 to play regulation time. Cats by a deuce at 4-2. Pioneers move it back through center ice. Down into the Northern Michigan zone. A weird bounce off the end boards. Podrasky there for Northern Michigan. Podrasky lugs it back up through center ice, dumps it down into the DU zone. In behind his own net. Having a little problem there's Greg Moore. Scott with a loose puck, a quick shot, and that just missed. Along the far side boards, back in a hurry is Engovic with one of the two Denver goals. A quick shot, Moore, and a quick glove save by Bill Pye. And the face-off will be in the Northern Michigan zone, and we've seen that glove hand several times this season.
Philly had to come out big on that save there by, who was that on the, oh, Barons there. You know, Rick Barons, who had an unbelievable freshman season last year. You know, he's a natural goal scorer, and, you know, with a guy like that in the slot, you know, you can't take chances, and Billy stoned him cold.
I think, if I recall, Barons was my choice for Rookie of the Year last year in the WCHA.
I think he was everybody's choice.
Although I did make the statement last year, you know, if Dean Antos would have played a full season, I think he would have been very close to being up there also.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Tom.
Face-off won by Northern Michigan, cleared back out into center ice. Antos heads for the Northern Michigan bench. On to take the face-off that time for the Hockey Wildcats. Kevin Scott out there replacing him now. Of course, Scott with the bad hand, playing in a playing cast this weekend. Scott on the backhand in behind the Denver goal. Ridden out of the play by MacArthur. Barons tries to pick it up. Garrow does for Northern Michigan. Centering pass, and Shayak almost had a tip-in right in front of Kerrigan. Pioneers get it back to center ice, and the play whistled down right at the red line, and we've got a tripping call coming up on Northern Michigan.
So you called that kind of late there. You didn't call anything until Ralph Backstrom, you know, really gave it to him. Then he finally made the call.
Well, Backstrom right down there by the side of the Denver bench. His Pioneers, with 9:20 to play, will have their fourth power play opportunity of the night as Garrow heads to the penalty box. 10:40, the time of the penalty on Garrow. Wildcat penalty killing team of Plandowski, Antos, Olson, and Podrasky. On the power play for Denver, McBride, Christopoli, and Shields up front. We'll set the blue line combination momentarily. This is MacArthur through center ice. He's back on one point. Russo on the other. Pye out of the Northern Michigan goal. Puck held in at the line by MacArthur. His shot deflected by Antos. Play down into the far side corner. Olson back there with Christopoli and Shields. Shields from the side, a centering pass, and that came back to the blue line, hopped right over the stick of MacArthur, and went all the way back down the ice. 1:20 remaining in the Wildcat penalty to Garrow. Pioneers try and get organized deep in their own zone. Intercepted down there momentarily by Eric Lamarck. Good job of forechecking. Lamarck had the short-handed goal last night. Phil Brown also up front right now. A good job for Northern Michigan. Brown still battling for that loose puck. Brown has it deep in the DU zone. Pass in behind the goal. Brown and Lamarck doing yeoman's job out there right now. Under 45 seconds to go in the DU power play. Christopoli crisscrossing back through center ice for Denver. Pulls up in the face-off circle, back on the blue line. MacArthur tipped away by Phil Brown. What a job by the Wildcat junior. Half a minute to go, DU power play. Barons backing over the line. Olson knocks that down. Wildcats looking extremely sharp right now, killing off another penalty. 15 seconds remaining in the shortage for Northern Michigan. Olson picks it up, clears it the length of the ice.
And that ought to kill the rest of the time off, Tom.
It's one of the best forechecking efforts I've seen on a penalty killing situation this season.
You know, definitely, yeah.
Penalty is over. Garrow back on the ice. Northern Michigan at full strength. Centering pass out front. Oh, and Engelvik just fired that puck wide. Northern Michigan back in over the line. This is Warenka being held off the play. Big hit in behind the goal is going down as Summers, as Garrow dealt that one out. Play still loose in the center ice zone. Back in over the line. Dallas Drake pulls up on the backhand for Ward. Ward turned around in the slot area, taken away. And Jay Moore has it for Denver, right back to the center red line. 6:40 to go, regulation time. Denver down by a pair at 4-2. Morano looking for the long pass up ice. Gets it at the Wildcat blue line. Across to Biggs. Biggs cutting in. Pye with the save. Good effort that time by Biggs. By the time he cut around the outside, there wasn't much left, and Pye just went down and covered up.
Yeah, well, it looked like Biggs was going on the outside, and he as you said, didn't have much to shoot at. It looked like he tried to put it through the 5-hole, Billy. Well, Tom, I lost on my 50-50. How about you?
Well, you don't have it. I don't have it. I still see a picture on the screen, so I know Kathy Crowley doesn't have it. I tell you, one of these times, Dave,
hopefully. Hopefully I don't have to pay, buy them anymore.
Well, hopefully you don't either, but in the meantime, you're doing a fine job up here, so. Troy Jacobson knocked on the seat of his pants at the Wildcat blue line. Shot coming right into Bill Pye. 6 minutes remaining, regulation time. Play back out into center ice. It's offside as Morano caught the puck while he was still inside the Wildcat blue line.
Well, there's even 6 minutes left in the game, Tom. You know, this is going to be very, very crucial, these next 6 minutes, that the Cats don't allow Denver to score. Because if Denver is able to score within the next 6 minutes, then that'll give an opportunity for them to pull their goalie, you know, and go for the tie to go push into overtime.
You know, I know you hockey players don't buy 50-50 tickets. You have your girlfriends buy them, as Eric Lamarck's girlfriend won the 50-50 pot last night. You know, fess up, Dave.
Well, my girlfriend's at home, so.
Wildcats clear back into the Pioneer zone. Berger tying up his man in behind the Denver goal. Play loose up the near side boards. Pioneers with Christoffoli back through center ice. Down into the northern Michigan zone. Sukharov takes a header. Put down. Quick shot on Pye. He covers up on the rebound. Is Denver dangerous from the circle?
Yeah, that was a very quick shot there by Ed Christoffoli, and it kind of looked like it took Billy by surprise there, the way he jumped. Either that or it hit him high, and that would made him kind of flinch a little bit.
Pye has played another sharp game in the Wildcat goal this evening. He's got to be up around the 40 save mark again. He had 43 last night. Face-off controlled by the Pioneers. Momentani clears it into the far side corner. Warenka first person there off to John Good. Good, a clearing pass for Berger back into the center ice zone. Berger picks it up again, lobs it back to the DU line. Cross ice pass is intercepted by Phil Brown. And the play is offside at the Denver blue line. Jacobson in ahead of the play.
Like Phil took quite a beating there for an offsides.
Yeah, Phil not the biggest individual in the world at 5'7", 176 pounds, but definitely one of the biggest hearts on the hockey Wildcat
Oh,
team.
definitely. You know, Phil gives 100% day in, day out. You know, in practice and in games. You know, he's just, you know, like you said, he's got, you know, one of the biggest hearts in the team.
Of course, in Brown's case, it more or less runs in the family with two older brothers, both very good hockey players also.
Yeah, you know, they're all, you know, good in the Brown family. You know, with Newell, he played for State and then was one of the coaches at State, and his brother Alistair played for New Hampshire for 4 years.
And Newell also played on a Canadian Olympic team that played here at Lakeview Arena a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, I remember that. I was up at that time on my recruiting trip, and unfortunately I was only able to stay for the first game when the Cats lost 6-0, but I remember it very well.
Second night was an exciting night, and Gary Emmons, I recall, made it a lot closer with a couple of outstanding moves. I think he had a hat trick the second night, and the Wildcats gave the Canadian Olympic team a run for their money, and I know pleased a lot of people here in Marquette that evening.
Yeah, that was a close game from what I mean, good game from what I heard. You know, it was a close game, 6-5, and you know, I just wish that we could have had an opportunity to play the Russian team this year.
Well, the discussion we were watching on the screen as we talked between Galicki and Engelvik has ended. Warenka clears the loose puck back to center ice. Down to 4:45 to play in regulation time. Play in offside at the Northern Michigan blue line. And Barron's having his skates poked at by Big Eddie Ward. Didn't look like Rick was too happy with that.
No, he's standing up on the bench there, and when coach stands up on the bench, you know, he's usually upset, or else he wants to get the attention of somebody. In that case, he want to get the attention of Eddie Ward, and just, you know, I think he just told him probably to be smart there. You know, there's only 4:41 left. He doesn't want to get a penalty.
Wildcats from the face-off bring it back into the Denver zone. This is Jeff Galicki in the far side corner. Takes a hit there from Summers. big hit along the near side boards as stepping into his man was Dallas Drake. Pioneers bring it back in over the Northern Michigan line. Barron's a shot, and Pye with the glove save reaching up. I'm not sure if that would have been over the top of the goal, but Pye took it anyway.
That was a good save there by Billy. You know, I'm not sure if that would have went wide, but you know, at this point in the state, you know, this stage of the game, Billy's not taking any chances.
Face-off will be off the Pye's left side. 4:19, getting down to the time where Denver will start planning to pull their goaltender Kerrigan if they don't score in the next 3 minutes or so. Wildcats with Drake again win the face-off. Brad Wawrinka takes a look in behind his own goal. Up ice for Drake. Up and over the line to Galicki. Galicki pulls up, gets away momentarily from Markovic. Drake steps into him, and Wildcat is hurt, and that is Galicki. And I think we have a penalty coming up on the play also.
Yeah, we do, Tom. Maybe a high sticking.
Ed Ward assisting the Wildcat training staff over to take a look at Jeff Galicki.
And that is trainer Jim Konkalski.
Been practicing that name.
Been practicing it overnight. You had to make sure I got that in there for him.
Still tending to Jeff Galicki on the ice.
Slashing the call. With 3:58 to go in the game here. Looks like number 7, Rick Behrens, is the culprit.
Boy, I tell you, this always amazed me, you know, Dave. You take a really good hockey player like Behrens, your team is down by 2 goals, and you end up taking stupid penalties like that.
Well, that's just, you know, that's just cause out of frustration right there. You know, that was, you know, a very stupid penalty. It was very uncalled for, and you know, I think frustration's starting to show us. You see Rick Behrens in the box there, and Jeff skating by, getting in his face a little bit there.
Well, we'll watch for that matchup if it happens again. We'll watch for that matchup again when Behrens gets out of the penalty box. I'm sure they'll meet again sometime before the game is over, and we still could have some situations arise in the last 3:58, Dave.
Well, you know, if they get on the ice at the same time together, you know, we could see some rough action occur, or maybe some fisticuffs for chance.
You know, I think it's a situation that the Wildcats would like to avoid if at all possible, having to go into Duluth and not wanting to go there, having a player sit out the first night from a game misconduct.
No, that wouldn't be a very good situation, especially for, you know, Jeff Galicki, who is one of our hottest goal scorers at the moment. You know, that wouldn't help the team out that much. So we'll just wait and see what happens.
Wildcats on the power play. They are on their 8th attempt of the night. Blandowski in over the line, drop pass, Antos a blast, he scores! I'll tell you what, Dave, that's a good way to answer a penalty like that, is to put it in the net, just like bang.
Real quick there. We're going to see here on the replay, Pete Podrasky picks the puck up inside boards, and Daryl Blandowski gets over the blue line where they just dropped it for Dean Antos, and Dino just lets it go and beats Kerrigan in the upper shelf. He just drilled it.
As Antos would probably tell it, he whipped the biscuit up into the upper right-hand corner on Lucian Kerrigan. For Antos, his 2nd goal of the night and his 10th goal of the season. Wildcats by 3 again at 5-2. 3.5 to play in the hockey game. Blandowski gets 1 assist. Podrasky gets the other. Penalty coming up on the play as a hook will be called on Northern Michigan. And Podrasky will head to the penalty box. Podrasky's penalty at 16:34 in the 3rd period.
Pete goes off for hooking there. He'll be sitting for 2 minutes. And you know, if Denver can score quickly here, you know, they're not out of the game, you know, at all. You know, as we know in the past, and, you know, we keep repeating this, but you know, they're so offensive that, you know, they can score at any time. You just got to watch out for them.
Things can happen quickly in college hockey, as was evidenced last year in that game when Denver came back. We pointed out last night it was also a record-setting night for Phil Berger when he got 3 goals in a minute 21, and it can be done. We've got 3:26 left on the clock. Let's see how the Wildcat penalty-killing team reacts. They win the face-off and clear it down the ice. Power play number 5 for Denver. Pioneers 0 for 4 with the man advantage tonight. Back to center ice. This is Shields on the move for the Pioneers. In over the northern Michigan line. Pulls up along the near side boards. Down low, Christoffoli. Cross ice right and missed the net as McBride batted it out of midair. Across to Shields again. Chest high on Pye, and he makes the save. Face-off will stay off to his right side in the northern Michigan zone.
You know, that was a good play there by McBride to knock that out of the air. It just went wide. But, you know, we got to just be careful and, you know, don't take any chances. Anytime we can get the puck out, just dump it out.
3 minutes exactly remaining regulation time. A 5-2 northern Michigan lead. Hockey Wildcats looking to go up by 3 points, increasing their lead over second place Minnesota.
So you're just saying first place Minnesota.
That's true. The Gophers defending WCHA champions. Back on the point, MacArthur off the Shields. McBride in behind the Wildcat goal. Back on the blue line, MacArthur winds up for a shot, and that's just missed. Rebound loose to the side of the goal, and Pye has that covered up.
Philly just robbed Darren McBride there off to the side of the net. You know, the rebound shot from Ken MacArthur off the point came straight back out off the boards from behind the net, and McBride thought he had a goal there, but Billy held his ground and robbed him.
You know, Dave, I'm sure that all Wildcat fans will agree that first place tag is something we could all get used to very quickly.
Well, yeah, you know, you can get used to it, but you just got to remember, you know, what you did to get there, and you know what you're going to do to stay there. You know, you can't just be happy that you're there and then that's it. You know, you have to continue to play and just remember what got you there.
That was the sentiments expressed by the majority of the locker room after last night's victory that moved them past Minnesota. So far tonight, the Wildcats doing just that. 2.5 to play. 1:05 left in Podrasky's penalty. Pioneers bring it right back into the zone with Shields. Bumped off the puck. Tied up with Dewey Marcus.
Dewey not wanting to be in the main attraction there. You blew the whistle there as quick as he could. Didn't want to become part of the glass.
Well, Dewey's on the wrong side there. I always thought the meat in the sandwich was supposed to be in the middle.
So he's going to become another little sign there on the sideboards there. Little Dewey Marcus sign. Spattered upon the glass.
What's it say, eat at Dewey's? Plandowski will take the faceoff right at the top of the faceoff circle, facing Jay Moore. Moore from Edina, Minnesota. Played well for the Pioneers this weekend. Wildcats win the faceoff, clear the zone. 50 seconds left in the minor penalty to Podrasky. Play offside, is way offside that time, was Jay Moore at the Wildcat blue line.
I'd just like to say, Perry Florio would like to say happy holidays to all the Marquette fans here tonight at the game.
Well, I know Perry's dad and mom back out east usually get the game tapes and watch them religiously, so I hear. So hello out on the East Coast.
Hello on the East Coast.
And Perry saying his dad was planning on coming up around the first of the year, hopefully to see Perry in some games after he becomes eligible. That's another question coming up. You know, a new body eligible to play after this weekend, I believe. Maybe not in Duluth, but situation again is, you know, can he crack the lineup as it is right now?
Yeah, you know, nothing's ever for sure. You know, you have to work in. We have to work to get into the lineup. You know, a spot is never secure, so, you know, I'm sure Perry's going to work hard.
From all things I've seen and heard, he's worked hard already this season just during the workouts, and that Pioneer is still dangerous on the power play. In behind the goal, this is Markovich. Centering pass back to Summers at the blue line. A long shot from there by Moore. stick the side back in behind the goal by Pye. 9 seconds left in the Denver power play. Pioneers in behind the goal with Engelbeck. Markovich from the side. Wildcats back at full strength. A centering pass, and that gets knocked away. Warenka picks it up, tries to ice it, can't get it out of the zone. Podrasky finally does. Down to 1:15 to play. Wildcats by 3 at 5-2. Just about chalk this one up in the W column for Northern Michigan. Unless the sky falls at Lakeview Arena, and I don't think we had that much snow outside today.
Well, we had quite a bit, but I don't think it's enough for the sky to fall in there, Tom.
A 1 minute even to play. 5-2 on the scoreboard. Wildcat goals, Antos with 2, Berger and Plandowski along with Podrasky for Northern Michigan. And Engelbeck and Biggs for Denver University. Dallas Drake again wins the faceoff in the Northern Michigan zone. Cleared up along the far side boards to Jeff Galicki. We'll watch to see if number 7, Rick Behrens, comes back on the ice. He's currently on the DU bench. Long shot in, that changed direction and skipped past the side of the goal. Lucian Kerrigan doing his best Bill Pye imitation down there. Have to tease Billy a little bit on that.
Just a little bit.
Hopefully, as we talked about it after the series, that's the last funny goal he'll see this year.
I don't think any goal that's scored on a goaltender is funny, but
you said he hadn't seen 2 stranger ones like that in the same hockey game. We're down to 15 seconds to play. Wildcat fans starting to cheer their home team as they rise in unison, what's left of them anyway, and saluting the first place hockey Wildcats with 1 second to go, and the game is over. And the Wildcats head out to mob Bill Pye as they sweep the Denver Pioneers, win their 6th game in a row, and have now won 10 of the last 11 contests. That's the final score on the screen. We'll be back to recap the night. Wildcats win 5-2.
I got a dream, comes from the heart of the heartland. I can make my dream, cause I take my dream right from the heart of the heartland. I won't rest, I'm gonna reach for the best, got it all here in my hand. And wherever I go, I'm gonna let them know it's coming right from the heart of the heartland.
In the heartland, people know what it means to reach for a dream. That's where Old Style is brewed. Brewed with a dream. Not to be the biggest beer in America, just the best. Reach for the best. Old Style beer.
Looking for outdoor comfort? Look downstairs at Getz's. For winter work or fun, Getz's has tough, heavy-duty, long-lasting gear from well-known manufacturers like Carhartt, Woolrich, Dickies, Dufo in every size, including big and tall. There's Sorels for men, women, and children, and lacrosse boots in every size. And downstairs at Getz's, there's years of experience to help you pick the right winter gear. Before you go outdoors, go downstairs at Getz's, South Front Street, Marquette.
Well, there's your final score on the screen. Northern Michigan 5 and the Denver Pioneers 2. And catering tonight for the Channel 8 production crew was provided by Van Gogh's Pizza and Lounge, 927 North 3rd Street, Marquette. Dave, you got here late for the pizza. You'll have to get here a little bit earlier next time. Looking at the goal scoring summary, back in the first period, Engelbeck got Denver off on the right foot as he scored at the 7:24 mark. Assists going to Moore and Russo, 1-0 Denver. Dean Antos came back, though, 30 seconds later off a pretty pass from Darrell Olson on the breakaway. Antos from Olson and Podrasky, it was 1-1. Then Phil Berger got Northern's 3rd power play goal of the weekend after that long drought. That marker came at 16:08. and that made it 2-1. Plandowski in the second period, the only goal of the period on that strange play when Kerrigan was down, made it 3-1 from Lamarck, and that's the way the second period ended. In the third period, Podrasky made it 4-1 off a pretty three-way passing play as Lamarck hit the trailer, being Podrasky at the 5:16 mark. And Dave, let's take a look at that one on the replay. Pretty passing play.
Oh, very pretty. You know, you see here Jeff Galicki going with the boards, and he passes to Eric Lamarck, and Eric just waits, and he finds Pete breaking down the right-hand side, and he just gives it over to him, and Pete kicks it off his skate and puts it in the lower left-hand corner for a goal.
Well, that upped the Wildcat lead at that particular point. And from there, Biggs cut the lead back to 4-2 on assists from Markovic and McBride. And just a nice finishing play here by the Pioneers off a deflection. It looked like off of Olson.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of a weird goal. You know, you see here Biggs comes back out into the slot. He just, you know, dishes it towards the net, and it goes off of Darrell Olson's skate there right into the net.
At 4-2, Antos finished it off.